What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel Hand Waving. Your friend Multiverse Shinobi 2.0 is here again with a brand new Naruto fanfic that's going to change everything. Today's fanfic is titled, What If? From Interrogator to Genjutsu God. Battlefield Analysis Team. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of shuriken and kunai flying across the battlefield echoed in the distance. Behind the front lines, members of the analysis team were working urgently on their missions. Captain, this is the genin with sensory talent, Tobitake Tonbo. He chose to join the analysis team immediately after graduation, Dokuraku Mawashi said, pointing to Tonbo standing behind him. Yamanaka Inoichi looked toward him, raising an eyebrow at the boy who was clearly still very young. Tonbo wore a Konoha forehead protector. However, his eyes, ears, and the back of his neck, essentially his entire head above the headband, were wrapped tightly in grayish-white bandages. Observing the world without using his eyes. It seems his sensory talent is indeed impressive, Inoichi thought. Is that Inoichi-senpai? Hello. I am Tobitake Tonbo. Seeing Inoichi look his way, Tonbo immediately straightened his posture, his voice laced with excitement. There's no time for small talk, Inoichi commanded. Mawashi, you take him under your wing. Aim to have him learn the psycho mind transmission, reading mind technique in the shortest time possible. Can you do it? Quote. On it, Captain, Mawashi replied, his eyes flashing with intensity. Ah. Tonbo's face fell. He had hoped for direct guidance from a Jonin. His senses lingered on Dokuraku Mawashi. This demon instructor of the analysis team was also young right now. Tonbo wondered when Kishimoto had even come up with the setting for this demon instructor. Hopefully, it wasn't a personality trait he possessed yet. Tonbo hadn't expected this. Watching the anime wasn't enough, so he had stayed up all night reading a fanfic, only to die of exhaustion and transme. Great. Now, he was in the midst of the Third Shinobi World War. He had been forced to graduate at only the 5th grade level. Terrified of dying, he had quickly identified the best place to stay safe, following the path of the original Tobitake Tonbo. A member of the analysis team. They had only one mission. Read the intelligence inside the enemy's brain, organize it, and hand it over to superiors. In times of peace, they were like the two gatekeepers of Konoha. They stayed put where they were needed. It couldn't be better. Mawashi led him to a side area of the encampment. Since it was wartime, the environment was naturally harsh. Here. This is the specific training method for the psycho mind transmission. With your sensory talent, it shouldn't be difficult. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me after I finish my mission. Mawashi tossed him a scroll and left. Tonbo knew the battlefield was an emergency. Every second counted. Even his CL mates, Might Guy, Ebisu, and Shiranui Genma, had to join the battle immediately. As a logistics specialist, he didn't have the luxury of one-on-one or one-on-3 specialized training. He opened the scroll. Peeling back the bandages on his face, he revealed his eyes. He thought learning the execution of the mind-reading technique would be simple. He had underestimated it. The scroll was filled with dense lines of text and figures. It was incredibly long. However, as he delved deeper into the reading, he realized that beyond the execution method, the scroll listed techniques on how to maximize intelligence retrieval once inside someone's mind. It also detailed methods to prevent the other person's thoughts from invading one's own mind during the process. Essentially, this jutsu was like an academic subject. The hand signs were the least important part. As long as one had sensory talent and decent spiritual energy, the execution was simple. As he read, the characters seemed to come alive. Tonbo found it exceptionally easy to understand. It wasn't nearly as difficult as he had imagined. Rat. Horse. Tiger. Once he finished reading, he quickly formed the hand signs. The formula for the psycho-mind transmission was executed by him with total ease. He scanned the camp, but finding nothing suitable to practice his mind reading on, he released the jutsu. What should I do next? To prevent enemy attacks, the analysis team was located in a hidden spot. He couldn't practice any flashy, high-impact ninjutsu here. I'll just practice my sensing then. He was, after all, a sensory-type ninja, a rarity compared to those with basic wind-style chakra. He wrapped the bandages back over his eyes. In his perception, everything around him turned into lines. This was how he could keep his eyes covered without affecting his movement. He formed the tiger seal and refined his chakra. Suddenly, his perception shifted. Within a 1-kilometer radius, the chakra signatures of distant frogs, birds, and shinobi appeared in his mind. While not as visually direct as the Byakugan, it was top-tier talent for a commoner. No wonder sensory ninjas were so rare. He then experimented with other basic ninjutsu, transformation, clone jutsu, and more. He realized a pattern. Since transmigrating, his talent seemed to have been boosted. No matter the knowledge, he could master it easily and even innovate upon it. For example, with the transformation jutsu, the original Tonbo could only transform into things he had observed for a long time. Now, with just a glance at a nearby animal, its form and gait would manifest in his mind, allowing for an instant, perfect transformation. The clone jutsu was the same. Before, it took him a full second. Now, his hand seals were a third faster. In a real fight, that was the difference between life and death. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to learn the mind-reading technique? While Tonbo was practicing chakra control by climbing a tree, Dokuraku Mawashi reappeared. Seeing that Tonbo wasn't following his instructions, Mawashi felt a surge of irritation. It was wartime. A ninja who didn't follow orders died easily. I've learned it. I just didn't have a subject to test it on, Tonbo said as he dropped down in front of him. Mawashi froze, his face full of disbelief. According to the records, while Tonbo was strong in sensory talent, his performance in ninjutsu and theory at the academy was only above average. Follow me. Since the boy claimed success, Mawashi didn't argue. Besides, with Tonbo's face covered in bandages, it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Curious, Tonbo followed. They soon arrived at an underground secret room. A series of closed doors lined the corridor. Mawashi led him into one of the rooms. The ninja inside has already had his intelligence extracted. His mind is in a state of chaos. Give it a try. Remember. Don't push yourself. Quote. Tonbo stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by a single flickering candle. Inside sat a dazed Sunagaker ninja. It seemed that forced mind reading had some nasty side effects. Mawashi didn't leave. He stayed by the side to watch, ensuring Tonbo didn't do anything reckless. Tonbo skillfully formed the hand signs and placed both hands on the neural centers just above the ninja's temples. He really did learn it. Mawashi thought, watching the boy's movements. He knew Tonbo wasn't lying. Back then, it had taken Mawashi 3 days to master this. Furthermore, Tonbo knew exactly where the nerves were most accessible from the outside. Starting from there saved a lot of effort during the mental intrusion. As Tonbo's spirit invaded the man's brain, he felt as if he were traveling through a time tunnel. Within the tunnel, fragments of memory flashed by. From entering the academy as a child to graduating and being sent on missions, the man was just a minor genin. However, his experience was quite rich, having survived the battlefields of the Third War for half a year before being captured by Konoha. Most of the memories were nonlinear and fragmented, likely due to the previous interrogations. However, Tonbo still absorbed a wealth of experience, combat tactics, scouting techniques, and more. He was also surprised, as if all of the other party's experiences allowed him to infer many things fro. M1. It seems that in the analysis team, my combat experience won't fall behind anyone else's in the future. Combat. Tobitake Tonbo's talent far exceeded Dokuraku Mawashi's expectations. He realized the boy's potential was immense. The next day, Tonbo was already ignored mind-reading missions. Through these sessions, he began to understand the true cruelty of war. This was the height of the Third Shinobi World War. Orochimaru was in command, with various Jonin leading squads to repel attacks from other nations. Unfortunately, Orochimaru was the only one of the Sannin present. Jiraiya and Tsunade were nowhere to be found on this front. Tsukumo Hatake, the White Fang, had also committed suicide a few years prior. This was arguably Konoha's weakest period in recent history. Meanwhile, Minato Namikaze was making a name for himself, earning the title of the Yellow Flash on the battlefield. From the memories Tonbo read, the rumors were true. Enemies were terrified of him. Shinobi who encountered him were officially authorized to abandon their missions and flee on sight. War is terrifying. I'd better stick to being a diligent worker in the analysis team, Tonbo thought. Navigating through various memories only strengthened his resolve. Saving the world was a job for the protagonists of each era. As he read more minds, his psycho-mind transmission grew increasingly proficient, so much so that it startled his captain, Dokuraku Mawashi. In his spare time, Tonbo practiced taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, and kunai throwing with his colleagues. On the battlefield, these were the most practical tools for a genin. During this time, he also met another teammate, Shimon, who was a newcomer just like him. Sigh. I hate war, Shimon lamented. Tonbo replied, I hate it too. But since we've become Konoha Shinobi, we have to do our part for the village. Today's mission wasn't heavy. They were ignored to patrol the perimeter of the base in two-man cells. Of course, this was mostly to train the genin, as the analysis team's headquarters was actually guarded by the Anbu. While on duty, Tonbo made sure to express his will of fire to his colleagues from time to time. It was a tool that never failed to be useful. Swoosh, swoosh. The two patrolled the dim forest, scanning their surroundings and occasionally using sensory ninjutsu to detect any potential enemies. This was their daily routine. Tonbo, however, did a bit more. He never forgot to learn while patrolling. Having extracted so many memories, he had acquired unique taijutsu styles and specialized shuriken and kunai techniques from other hidden villages. He benefited greatly from this. But the biggest gains were the scouting experience, code analysis, and tracking methods. It was a true eye-opener. For a ninja, especially a commoner without a kekkei genkei, that theoretical knowledge was often more reliable on the battlefield than ninjutsu itself. Wait, something's happening. Suddenly, Tonbo stopped and activated his sensory ninjutsu. A map of chakra signatures within a 2-kilometer radius appeared in his mind. 1 kilometer to the east, a small unit has suddenly appeared. Based on their chakra levels, it's an elite squad. In his sensory vision, over a dozen people had suddenly breached their warning perimeter. The smallest chakra signature among them was roughly equal to their captain, Dokuraku Mawashi. Let's go report to the captain. Even though the Anbu hadn't detected them yet, since they had to report it. Shimon used his own sensory ninjutsu to confirm Tonbo's findings, and the two quickly returned to the analysis team base. Reporting. Situation detected. They found Mawashi and immediately relayed their discovery. Mawashi didn't dare be careless and reported to his superior, the squad leader Yamanaka Inoichi. Within moments, Inoichi appeared, leading 4 squads. Good job. Follow me. The command made Tonbo's brain stall. Was the analysis team actually going into combat? Yes, they really were. However, Their role was to block the enemy's escape on the outer perimeter. The main force, led by Inoichi and supported by the patrolling Anbu, would handle the elimination. Blocking the outskirts served as a practical test for the juniors. They hid in the shadows, suppressing their breath. Shimon, it's your first battle. Are you nervous? Tanbo asked. Shimon replied, no, this is a ninja's duty. Tanbo didn't know how to respond to that. In truth, he wasn't nervous either. He had witnessed so many battles while reading intelligence that he had become accustomed to them. He pulled out wire and paper bombs, explosive tags, setting traps nearby. These traps were designed based on his integrated analysis of enemy memories, placed in the most likely paths of retreat. Good lad. I didn't expect your trap-making skills to be this high, Dokuraku Mawashi praised him. As a chunin who had survived several years of war, he could see that Tanbo's traps were of a very high caliber. Tanbo smiled. He felt that his mind in the shinobi world was becoming something akin to Kazuki Urahara or Ruken Ishida from Bleach, though his focus wasn't on scientific research. Clang! Clang! Intense fighting broke out in the distance. In Tanbo's perception, different natures of chakra were clashing violently, accompanied by the roar of explosive tags. Since Yamanaka Inoichi was still alive in the original series, Tanbo knew they would win this encounter. Sure enough, a few moments later, several enemies scattered and fled in different directions. One of them headed straight toward their position. Here he comes. The three reacted simultaneously. Following the three-man formation they learned at the academy, they ambushed the escapee's path. Several shuriken appeared in Tanbo's hand. After signaling his teammates, he launched them at clever angles. The intruder wore an Iwagakure, hidden stone, forehead protector. Judging by the situation, he was a chunin with rich combat experience. Therefore, Tanbo chose to attack with projectiles from different angles to test the opponent's reflexes. Indeed, the enemy showed his experience. He dodged two shuriken with a side step and deflected another with a kunai, his vigilance never wavering. Suddenly, a miv log swung down from above. The enemy formed hand signs, and rock covered his arm as he punched the log away. More shuriken flew in, this time a coordinated strike from Shimon and Mawashi. Simultaneously, the wire traps Tanbo had designed closed in on him at high speed. The enemy's expression soured, and he suddenly vanished before their eyes. The hidden stone's earth release. Hiding in rock technique. Quote. Tanbo immediately identified the jutsu. However, time to test if this move works. He thought of a technique he had only practiced a few times, meant for dealing with diverse enemies. He hadn't expected to use it so soon. His hands blurred into seals. Earth release. Earth turning to steel. He was a specialized sensory ninja. Such a level of underground travel couldn't hide from him. He slammed his palm onto the ground above the tunneling enemy. Visibly, the soil beneath him shifted into solid rock. This was a C-rank jutsu, not widely used, but a perfect counter for earth release tunneling. Thump. The enemy realized what was happening, but it was too late. Tanbo leapt away as a mangled, bloodied figure forced its way out of the ground. The enemy tried to attack Tanbo, but then collapsed. Shuck. Mawashi drove a kunai into the enemy's heart to ensure he wasn't faking death. Only then did he turn to Tanbo. Impressive handling of the situation. Changing positions. Tanbo. The higher-ups have officially credited us with an A-rank mission for that last one. You really are my lucky star. Quote. Dokuraku Mawashi chuckled as he spoke to Tobitake Tanbo, his face full of joy. Hearing this, Tanbo was also quite satisfied. During wartime, recorded missions could be exchanged for ryo, ninjutsu scrolls, or other shinobi resources once the conflict ended. For an A-rank mission, the standard rate usually started at least 1 million ryo. That was enough to buy over 100 explosive tags. Of course, he'd have to wait for the war to end. Currently, all resources were prioritized for the front lines. But that wasn't all. Detecting the enemy was one mission, but reading their memories was another. Tonbo had managed to snag a B rank credit for that as well. According to the extracted memories, that group was a decapitation unit sent by Iwagakure, specifically targeting Konoha's logistics. Intelligence units, the corpse processing team, the torture and interrogation force, the analysis team, and the medical corps, these were all logistics units and their primary targets. Fortunately, they had detected them early. If they had been caught off guard, the losses would have been catastrophic. Oh, Captain, is there something else? Tonbo asked. Haha. Actually, there is. Mawashi's smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. Based on the intelligence from the enemy's memories, we can't be certain whether they managed to send our current location back to their base. Therefore, we are moving the analysis team's position. Tonbo straightened up immediately. Understood. Good. Get ready. We move out tonight. After giving his orders, Mawashi hurried to the next location, likely to notify the rest of the team. Tonbo, feeling a flicker of anxiety, first used his sensory ninjutsu to sweep the area. Only after confirming there were no enemies within a 1-kilometer radius did he release the seal. He was determined to stay safe within the analysis team and contribute to Konoha from the shadows. He couldn't let the enemy discover their base. Martial arts. Night fell. Beneath the shroud of darkness, several dark figures flickered through the forest. Their presence was so well hidden that even birds nesting nearby failed to notice anyone ping. Tonbo was among them. One of the most basic yet vital skills for a shinobi, breath suppression. When watching the anime, he hadn't felt much about it, but actually using it made him realize that being a shinobi was truly an I-Nation profession. Hashirama and Madara were essentially just warriors fighting under the banner of shinobi. Discover more. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. Martial arts films. Books, fanfiction stories. Anime fanfiction stories. Cookies. TV fanfiction stories. Books. Mobile app development. Writing workshops online. Microblogging. Judging by the movements of the analysis team and their Anbu guards, everyone's stealth foundations were excellent. Their advance was silent. Even Shimon, a fellow genin, performed flawlessly. At this moment, Tonbo couldn't help but wonder, how did Ever manage to graduate? Was it really just because of the multi-shadow clone jutsu? It was likely political necessity that pushed his graduation. Otherwise, mere clones wouldn't meet the basic standards of a genin. Frankly, even now, Tonbo felt he had plenty of ways to deal with clones, partly due to his future knowledge, he thought confidently. Given the characteristic of shadow clones, transferring experiences back to the original body upon dispersal, they were actually easy to counter. For instance, he could reverse the use of psycho-mind transmission to funnel his own agonizing thoughts into the clone. Even if the clone vanished, the pain wouldn't. Psycho-mind transmission. Pain. Lately, to survive this war, he had been doing everything possible to grow stronger. Since he lacked a Kekkei Genkei and his chakra reserves were only at the level of an average genin, he focused on maximizing his strength. GTHS. Aside from practicing different nature transformations, he developed a combat style suited to his advantages. Sensing and spiritual energy were his forte, so that became his focus. Psycho-mind transmission. Pain involved collecting the suffering he encountered while reading the minds of Number. Aus Shinobi. Physical pain, mental trauma, the loss of family or friends, the agony of torture, and sealing those pain signals in his mind. Then, using Genjutsu, he could transmit that concentrated agony directly into an enemy's heart. He only needed a split-second opening to end it with a kunai to the chest. While powerful shinobi could likely regain control quickly, shinobi battles were high-mobility affairs. A single moment was all it took. Indeed, his path to power was Genjutsu. In the anime, the ceiling for Genjutsu was the Sharingan. Aside from that, the highest-tier practitioners were Kurenai Yuhi and her father, Shinku Yuhi. While others might not find non-Sharingan Genjutsu impressive, Tanbo was confident that with his talent, he could eventually hold his own against someone like Itachi Uchiha. At the very least, reaching Jonin level shouldn't be a problem. If things got too dangerous, he'd just stay hidden and let the children of the prophecy handle the enemies. Anime and manga. Swoosh. Swoosh. We've arrived. Everyone, set up camp. Move quickly. Anbu guards and sensory ninja patrol the perimeter. Ensure no intelligence reaches the enemy. Yes, sir. Following the orders of Yamanaka Inoichi, the analysis team leader, everyone moved with disciplined ICIENCY. As a sensory ninja, Tanbo was ignited to an Anbu squad for patrol and search duties. Several days passed since the relocation, and the analysis team returned to its routine. Tanbo clocked in for work every day, using his free time to practice ninjutsu and taijutsu, as well as developing his Genjutsu. Much of his knowledge came from the minds he read. After integrating and organizing the information, he had devised a training regimen for himself. This was actually part of the analysis team's work. If they extracted a jutsu Konoha didn't have, or a simplified set of hand seals, reporting T earned rewards. His chakra was also growing faster. Initially, he could only release earth turning to steel 3 times before exhausting his chakra. Now, he could manage 5 in a short period. Spiritual energy. Physical energy. Quote. A month passed, and Tanbo grew rapidly. Wartime was a catalyst. The accumulation of spiritual energy through constant life and death stakes was something era couldn't compare to. His chakra reserves were becoming sufficient to sustain a prolonged battle. Over the past month, by reading various enemy memories, he had figured out their general location, the border of the Land of Fire, just behind the front lines. Being so close to the front explained why there were new enemies to interrogate every day. This kept Tanbo on edge, fearing an enemy might pop out of nowhere. He never let up on his scheduled sensory sweeps. Iwagakure's offensive was currently ferocious, simultaneously taking on Konoha and Kumogakure, Hidden Cloud. Even with Konoha's superior medical system and elite ninja like the Yellow Flash and Orochimaru, the village was showing signs of exhaustion. It made Tanbo want to run off and find Tsunade and Jiraiya to beg them to return. He was terrified that the plot might deviate from the anime. Interestingly, in one enemy's memory, he saw a silver-haired figure using lightning release, as well as a glimpse of Minato Namikaze. Beside them was a boy wearing goggles and a beautiful girl with a Dora bob-cut hairstyle. Chunin. Hello. This is the intelligence regarding Iwagakure. Tobitake Tanbo handed a scroll to the silver-haired boy standing before him. HMPH. Kakashi didn't say much. He took the scroll and left. No small talk. No wasted words. Man, really, he's so cold. It looks like Obito and Rin haven't quite managed to soften him up yet, Tanbo muttered, shaking his head as he watched Kakashi's retreating back. Delivering this intelligence was a task ignored to him by Yamanaka Inoichi. There was no other reason for it than the fact that Tanbo had performed his mind-reading duties too well, so well that Inoichi feared reading any more memories for the time being would cause Tanbo's own mind to become scrambled. However, in wartime, aside from necessary rest, manpower could not be wasted. Thus, he was sent to deliver the reports extracted by the analysis team to the disciple of the Yellow Flash. At this time, Kakashi was already a Jonin. It was because of this rank that he could operate independently during the war. Communication between the front lines and the analysis team is becoming more frequent. It looks like the Battle of Canopy Bridge is about to begin, Tonbo analyzed based on the intelligence he handled. It was just as he expected. Half a month later, news arrived from the front. The diversionary unit led by the Yellow Flash had successfully cut off Iwagaker's supply line at Canopy Bridge. Overnight, the fame of the Yellow Flash reached new heights. Simultaneously, Konoha began its counter-offensive, pushing the Iwagaker forces back. Even shinobi from the analysis team like Tonbo were pulled onto the battlefield, relying on their superior sensory abilities to track down fleeing enemies. The goal was to settle the trouble with the hidden stone as quickly as possible to deal with the other hidden villages. Swoosh. Swoosh. Og. It hurts. It hurts. Tonbo formed a seal and cast his technique. Before him, a Chunin squad's faces twisted as they let out agonizing wails. Shimon seized the opportunity, driving his kunai through their chests. Their bodies tumbled from the tree branches. Haha. Tonbo, your genjutsu is getting more and more twisted. Shimon remarked, feeling a lingering fear as he watched the technique. Don't waste time. 3 o'clock direction, another squad is coming, Tonbo said. Wartime was no time for idle chatter. Right. Swoosh. Despite only experiencing the brief aftershocks of the main battle, Tonbo was physically and mentally exhausted. These remnant ninja were just small fry compared to the grand scale of the war, but they kept his nerves on edge and his mind drained. Damn it, why does the analysis team have to do frontline combat too? I'm like a brick. Wherever they need a hole filled, they just toss me in. Combat was merely an interlude for Tonbo. His primary profession was still as a shinobi of the analysis team, a core member of the intelligence department. Encountering enemies was relatively rare, occurring mostly during chance meetings. Tobitake Tonbo is a true genius. At such a young age, his skills in mind reading and even combat have become master CL. Dokuraku Mawashi reported to Yamanaka Inoichi. Over the past 3 months of working together, Tonbo had firmly caught their attention. Inoichi pondered for a moment and smiled. This is the will of fire. Where the leaves flutter, the fire shall burn. I have already submitted the application. Tonbo has been outstanding these past few months. I believe he is ready for promotion to Chunin. Understood. Mawashi was genuinely happy for his subordinate. What? I've been promoted to Chunin. The shocking news reached Tonbo's ears. Mawashi nodded. That's right. Your performance has been excellent. Lord Third has personally authorized your promotion. Is it really that easy? Tonbo wondered. By the way, the fighting with Iwagaker has ended. In a few days, we'll be heading back to the village, Mawashi added. Ah, finally, we can go home. Those damn memories were driving me crazy. Tonbo breathed a heavy sigh of relief. His talent was great, yes, but reading the memories of others was not something a normal person could handle easily. Shinobi truly had to be one who could endure. Unlike the anime, every job a ninja did was grueling. In the analysis team, when there were enemy brains, they read minds. When there weren't, well, in war, there was no such thing as free time. They had to help with patrols. He truly envied those transmigrators who had systems. Why did they get systems and get sent to times of peace? According to his estimates, there was still about half a year to a year left before the war fully ended. By now, Minato had likely already gotten Kushina pregnant. And Uchiha Obito should be on his way to becoming a boss under Madara's tutelage. Crunch. On the yellow dirt road, a line of carriages moved along. Surrounding them were shinobi wearing Konoha forehead protectors, with scouts patrolling the vicinity. Thanks to the yellow flash, the trouble with the stone was settled so quickly. True. And his team members, the White Fang's son, Kakashi. I heard he's already a Jonin and even developed his own original ninjutsu. Quote. A shame, though. I heard one of his teammates sacrificed his life. Sigh. That's just how it is. People die in war. I've gone through several sets of teammates myself. Walking with the group, Tonbo overheard the idle talk of the other ninja. So he really did die. The current Kakashi must have already been fitted with his Sharingan. It was enviable, getting a Kekkei Genkei for free. Of course, Tonbo had no intention of grafting someone else's bloodline onto himself. As he chewed on his dry rations, he thought to himself, if a ready-made Sharingan were right in front of me, what would I do? He'd likely hand it over to the village in exchange for some high-level Genjutsu created by the second Hokage. If Senju Tobirama could create Genjutsu to counter the Sharingan, why should Tonbo feel inferior? Bloodline limits like that were just magnets for trouble. Since he knew the general plot, he figured he'd just stay burrowed in the analysis team, waiting for the protagonists to grow up and fix Everett. Hing. According to the original story, Tonbo, Shimon, and Captain Mawashi were all characters who survived until the very end. The very end. Wait. Didn't the headquarters get obliterated by the Ten-Tailed Beast bomb later on? Tonbo instantly grew tense. He still had to work hard to grow. He had to ensure that during the final battle against the Ten-Tails, that tailed beast bomb wouldn't hit the HQ. Captain Tonbo, what are you thinking about? Shimon teased, patting his shoulder. Tonbo grimaced. Please, just call me Tonbo. Or, Tonbo-kun. Don't call me Captain. Thank you. Why? I think it has a nice ring to it, Shimon asked. Tonbo's face darkened. It wasn't for any other reason than the fact that being called that felt embering. Ever since Shimon found out about the promotion, he hadn't stopped, and it was incredibly annoying. Focus on the patrol, don't get distracted. Quote. What's there to worry about? The fight with the stone is over. I'm sure things on Lord Orochimaru's side are almost settled too, Shimon said confidently. Hiruzen Sarutobi. They're back. They're back. Quote. That's my brother. He's a Chunin now. HMPH. My daddy is a Jonin. Where is he? Outside the gates of Konoha, a MIV crowd had gathered. Countless residents watched as the shinobi army slowly approached. Everyone looked at the ranks with anticipation, hoping to spot a family member. Even if they didn't see them, they held on to the hope that their loved ones had simply been reined to another unit. Within the ranks, the shinobi waved to familiar faces among the bustling residents, some to family, others to friends. After registering, you are dismissed. Go home and be ready for potential mobilization at any time, squad leader Yamanaka Inoichi announced to the shinobi. Yes, sir. Tonbo Tobitake observed the scene. He saw a black-haired woman with a pregnant belly and a bright smile. When she spotted Inoichi, her face lit up with joy. Inoichi hurried forward, supporting her carefully as if terrified she might trip. So that's Boss Inoichi's wife. The mother of the future Ino Yamanaka. It looks like she's carrying Ino right now. He also saw other teammates being greeted by loved ones. Just then, a clean-cut, smiling middle-aged man appeared. He looked to be in his 30s but was missing an arm. Upon seeing Tonbo, he walked over. Good lad. Looks like you've grown quite a bit on the battlefield. Dad, don't underestimate me. I'm just like you now, a member of the analysis team. And I've even studied under Lord Inoichi, Tonbo said with a proud smile. This was his father, Tosei Tobitake. He had once been a CL mate of the White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake, until his arm was severed in battle. Unable to weave hand seals, he retired, which eventually led to Tonbo's birth. The reason the original Tonbo knew so much about Yamanaka Inoichi and admired him was because of the ninja stories Tosei had drilled into him. Very good. As expected of my son. You didn't get scolded by your superiors, did you? Tosei teased. He was very satisfied that his son had inherited his talent. Give me a break. Do you think I'm like you? Going to the hospital from memory overload the first time I used mind reading. Your son is already a chunin now. What? It really is my superior genes. HMPH. Damn it. Back then I was only a little bit behind Lord White Fang. Is my son going to be a little bit behind his son too? After registering, Tonbo followed his father back home. It was a two-story residential building that followed the standard Konoha architectural style, a blend of ancient and modern, built entirely of wood. Entering the front door, he saw numerous dragonfly trinkets made from various plants hanging around. It felt very warm and welcoming. Throwing his luggage into his room, Tonbo finally felt a long overdue sense of relaxation. He collapsed onto his bed and fell fast asleep. Tosei didn't disturb him. Only after becoming a shinobi and experiencing war could one truly appreciate the value of peace. In his own room, Tosei used his dexterous right hand to craft another dragonfly from reeds and hung it on the eaves. The eaves were already crowded with dragonfly models, 125 of them, to be exact. Ah, it's already the next morning. Tonbo stretched, enjoying the first peaceful sleep he'd had in ages. After brushing his teeth and eating a breakfast filled with his father's affection, he headed out. Do fish have depressing memories too? At Konoha's training ground number 98, beside a wide, flowing stream, Tonbo was performing a jutsu on a palm-sized fish. Under the influence of the technique, the fish's eyes gradually began to show a hint of sadness. However, after only a moment, they returned to their normal, vacant stare. It seems psycho mind transmission. Depression still needs improvement. Having finally settled back into the village, Tonbo had begun a series of ninjutsu experiments. At the top of his list was Genjutsu. After developing psycho mind transmission, pain on the battlefield, a genjutsu that forced enemies into a state of agony, he had become thoroughly interested in this field. The difficulty of psycho mind transmission, pain lay in grasping a creature's emotional trauma and the physical nerves that generate pain. His theory was that by manipulating the interaction between the target's pain receptors and the brain, he could force the conscious mind to trigger pain signals, thereby causing a real physiological impact on the body. For the most part, his experiments had been successful. Now, he wanted to develop depression. This involved using genjutsu to make the brain send out signals of despair and apathy, creating lethargy in the body's nerve cells to find opening for a one-hit kill. But clearly, judging by this fish, the effect was only fleeting. He was missing something. Yo, young man, are you practicing genjutsu on a fish? Poof. Tonbo felt his heart nearly leap out of his chest. The voice came from right next to his ear. If this person meant him harm. Trembling slightly, he slowly turned his head. He pushed up his forehead protector and peeled back the bandages covering his eyes. An elderly man appeared before him, sporting a pointed goatee. Lord Third Hokage. Standing there was indeed the third Hokage of Konoha, Hiruzen Sarutobi. At this point in time, he didn't have as many wrinkles as he did during S era, but the signs of aging were clear. Haha. No need for formalities. Did I startle you? Hiruzen chuckled, waving his hand. Tonbo didn't dare be disrespectful, but he put on a dejected tone. No. It's just that as a sensory ninja of Konoha, someone reached my side without me even noticing. I've failed the village's training. Ha 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 ha. Hiruzen laughed heartily. I am the Hokage, after all. If I were discovered by a little brat who just left the academy, then I would be the one failing my teacher's training. Ha ha ha. You're not wrong, but this is terrifying. Don't you know you can scare people to death? Tonbo grumbled inwardly. Tell me, have you run into a problem with your ninjutsu? I am the Hokage. I can certainly give you some guidance, Hiruzen offered. Tonbo glanced at him. You know you're the Hokage. Don't you have work to do instead of coming out here to scare people? Nevertheless, he spoke up. Well, there is a small issue. He explained the entire theory behind his genjutsu and the obstacles he was facing. I see. While genjutsu isn't exactly my specialty, I know that humans and fish are different. If you want to fully develop this genjutsu, you'll have to test it on a real person, Hiruzen advised. Tonbo nodded. Pain had also been perfected through testing on enemies. Pain receptors and depression signals weren't in the same neurological ballpark, which was why he had failed here. Ah, it's been a long time since I've moved around. Let me be your test subject, Hiruzen said, unable to resist after seeing how clever the boy was. As he said, since the war began, he had been cooped up in his office every day and hadn't seen action in a long time. Wouldn't that be improper? You are the Hokage, after all. Despite being excited by the offer, Tonbo maintained his persona, a boy who loved Konoha and cherished his comrades. Ha ha. Where the leaves flutter, the fire shall burn. This is the will the first Hokage and my teacher ped down to me. I have always upheld it, and I hope you can carry it on as well, Hiruzen said, a look of nostalgia crossing his face. Tsuki, Ayame, and Ichiraku Ramen. At training ground number 98, two figures clashed in a blur of motion. Clang. Their kunai collided. Swoosh. Swoosh. Shuriken and kunai whistled through the air, cutting off Hiruzen Sarutobi's path of retreat. Toba-take Tonbo's hands blurred as he rapidly wove seals. Psycho mind transmission. Depression. Hiruzen took only one look at the boy's eyes before a sudden, heavy sense of world weariness washed over him. The urge to block the incoming kunai and shuriken vanished instantly. I'm so old. What's the point of living? I might as well just die right here. The thought flickered through his mind for a split second. Holy crap. Am I actually going to kill the third Hokage? Seeing Hiruzen go dazed and motionless after being hit by the jutsu, Tonbo panicked. If he actually killed the Sandaime, his life was over. He didn't have the power to roam the shinobi world as a rogue ninja. He just wanted to be a diligent worker and live a quiet life. Poof. The kunai and shuriken struck Hiruzen, but he dissolved into white smoke. A shadow clone. Tonbo breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, he was secretly thrilled. His theory was correct. This type of genjutsu was incredibly effective against ninja. Perhaps the fish hadn't understood the complex emotion of depression, only feeling a momentary confusion, but humans were a different story. His idea was sound. But where was the real Hokage? He looked left and right, scanning the area, pushing his sensory range to its maximum. Sigh. Why be the third Hokage? Wouldn't it be better to just raise my son, wait for a grandson, pick a fourth Hokage, and enjoy my retirement? I don't want to move. Not one bit. I'm so old, I should just lie down. No one would dare say anything to me anyway. Maybe I should just call it a day. Behind a miv tree, Hiruzen Sarutobi sat with his back against the trunk, staring up at the white clouds drifting across the azure sky. He couldn't stop muttering to himself. Suddenly, his hands formed a seal. Release. The gloom in his eyes instantly vanished, replaced by his usual sharp light. A terrifying technique. Using genjutsu to transmit negative information directly to the enemy. Even for a shadow clone, and even after the jutsu is released, the psychological impact lingers. Hiruzen still felt a lingering chill. That crushing sense of despair was something that even a veteran of 100 battles like himself found difficult to withstand. Not bad. Not bad at all. Your ninjutsu is excellent, Hiruzen said as he stepped out from behind the tree, having calmed his emotions. However, this technique is quite potent. You must never use it on a comrade, understood? Quote. Ah. Is it really that powerful? Tonbo asked. To him, it just seemed Okay. His Psycho Mind transmission series consisted of visual and tactile genjutsu. They were triggered primarily through eye contact or physical touch. In his mind, they were tactical tools meant to break an enemy's balance for a split second. Powerful, yes, but he hadn't expected such high praise from the professor himself. Hiruzen was about to say more when a figure wearing an animal mask appeared. Lord Hokage. Urgent intelligence from Orochimaru on the front lines. Hiruzen nodded to the Anbu and turned to Tonbo. I must get to work. Keep up the hard training. Swoosh. As the two figures vanished, Tonbo was in high spirits. It seemed his jutsu had depths he hadn't even explored yet. It really did pay to have human test subjects. Judging by the Hokage's tone, the move was a heavy hitter. It's probably related to the actual symptoms of clinical depression, he thought. His mind was sharp, and his job allowed him to absorb the experiences of many ninja. He could guess why it worked so well. Depression was truly terrifying. If he could further develop this jutsu to evolve from mental depression to physiological depression, it would be god tier. According to the memory of a certain medical ninja he'd read, depression was categorized into mental and physiological types. Mental depression could be resisted with willpower, but physiological depression, where the body physically affects the mind, couldn't be overcome by spirit alone if the biolog ICAL cause wasn't addressed. Let's keep going. I'll spend the rest of the time on taijutsu. For long battles, you have to rely on your body. Even in the original series, until the Fourth Great Ninja War, taijutsu remained a ninja's most vital tool. The war had taught him the benefits of taijutsu firsthand. These two things combined, genjutsu for high-end combatants and taijutsu to efficiently deal with opponents using limited chakra, would be his path forward. Tell me, what intelligence is so urgent? Hiruzen returned to the Hokage's office, where Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Utatane were already waiting. Homura spoke first. According to Orochimaru's report, the third Raikage, A, died of exhaustion while acting as a rearguard for the Kumogakure forces during a battle with Iwagakure. Hiruzen froze for a moment before nodding. It seems the end of the war is near. Issue my command. Send Team Minato to support Orochimaru's front. We must suppress the conflict with the Cloud in the shortest time possible. Quote. Understood. The Anbu ninja gave a short acknowledgement and vanished. The death of a Raikage was a monumental event that would change the entire layout of the war. After Hiruzen finished his discussion with the two elders, he spoke to the shadows. Bring me the files on Tobitake Tonbo. He remembered every ninja who graduated from the academy, so he naturally knew Tonbo. Moreover, he had personally authorized the boy's promotion to Chunin not long ago. Soon, an Anbu returned with the documents. Sensory Ninja, member of the analysis team, possesses high talent in mind-reading techniques, skilled in taijutsu and genjutsu. Father was also in the analysis team. Dream is world peace and inheriting the will of fire. A fine sprout indeed, and a child who carries the will of fire, Hiruzen thought, very satisfied with the report. Hashirama, Tobarama, I am ping on the will of fire for you. Walking through the bustling streets of Konoha, Tonbo took everything in. He held a popsicle, licking it slowly as he thought about his encounter with the third. He knew the Hokage giving him personal guidance definitely had a purpose behind it. But he didn't care. He would just work quietly and find a wife who was gentle, virtuous, beautiful, and rich. He'd have 2 sons and 2 daughters and watch them grow up. That was his real dream. However, he needed to keep leveling up his survival skills. If that had been an aggressive ninja instead of the Hokage, he might have died before he could even react. It showed the sheer gap in power. A Hokage-level shinobi could walk right up to a sensory ninja without being noticed. Wait, Ichiraku Ramen. Suddenly, he saw a very familiar storefront. He reached into his pouch and counted his coins. He had plenty of money, so he decided to head in. He wanted to experience the place the protagonist group loved so much. He was a worker, and he'd always be a worker. Working was just a means to earn money and eat good food. The goal remained: stay alive. Do not try to save the world. Welcome. As soon as he stepped inside, a deep, friendly voice greeted him. He looked up to see a man around his father's age. This was Chuki. He was clearly younger than in the anime, though he still had that look where you couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed. He was busy prepping ramen for other customers. Beside him was a beautiful girl around Tonbo's age. This must be Ayame. She's actually quite pretty, Tonbo thought, his eyes lighting up. Hello. What would you like? I recommend the seafood ramen. It's our new special. Ayame asked with a warm smile. He daily life of a worker. Slurp. Your skills are amazing, uncle, and your daughter is very beautiful too. Tonbo Tobitake spoke with his mouth full, offering praise to the father and daughter duo. Haha, is that so? Well, of course. I learned my craft from the master chefs in the land of fire. Chuki was extremely proud to have his cooking praised. The corners of his eyes crinkled with joy. That's right. My dad is the best. Ayame beamed, clearly happy to hear the compliment. By the way, you're a ninja, right? Why aren't you out on the battlefield? Martial arts films. Chuki looked at the forehead protector and the bandages wrapped around the boy's head without much surprise. He had seen people who wrapped the bottom half of their faces. Wrapping the top half wasn't much stranger. Ah, you mean this? I'm in the logistics group. I just got back from the Iwagakure front. Heh. I actually racked up quite a few merits. Tonbo laughed. Ayame turned to him and said, Big brother, my name is Ayame. What's yours? And why are you wearing bandages? Is it because you aren't handsome? Nonsense. I was the most handsome guy in the academy. Whether it's the taijutsu genius Might Guy, the super genius Kakashi, Uchiha Inabi of the Uchiha clan, or the model student Hayama Shirakumo, when it comes to looks, they're all losers compared to me. I only cover my face because I don't want them to feel inferior. Hearing Ayame suggest he wasn't good looking, Tonbo immediately grew indignant. He listed the more famous guys from school, sounding more confident with every name. His tone was full of spirit. He. You're bragging. I haven't seen Kakashi since he wears a mask, but I've seen Hayama Shiragumo and Uchiha Inabi. Ayame was young, but she wasn't stupid. She didn't believe a word of his boasting. Slurp. After swallowing the last mouthful of noodles, Tonbo began to unwrap his bandages. Since you've put it that way, I'll make an exception and let you see. Only this once, okay. As the layers of bandages fell away, a small face was revealed. He had pale blue eyes that seemed misted with white, silver white hair, and striking white eyelashes. The slight curve of his lips made his entire expression seem to be radiating a smile. Crafts. Ah, your eyes are so pretty. Ayame gasped, staring at him. Even Chuki was stunned, his cooking motions coming to a halt. The boy truly was a little heartthrob. Swish. Just as they were about to take a closer look, Tonbo wrapped the bandages back around his head and repositioned his konoha. Forehead protector. Heh. I wasn't lying, was I? I really am handsome. Tonbo was very satisfied with himself. He had looked in the mirror before. In terms of pure aesthetics, no one in the shinobi world could rival him. Right. I forgot to mention. My name is Tobitake Tonbo. Yes, you are handsome. The most handsome I've ever seen. However, it's time to pay the bill, to buy Ta-Ke Tunbo. Ayame pointed at his bowl and giggled behind her hand. Quote. After paying, Tonbo walked out the door to their cheerful calls of, please come again. Walking down the streets of Konoha, A smile played on his lips. Ah, I've found my goal. Ayame would be a perfect wife. She had a gentle, charming face and a father who owned a shop, one that Yuki would eventually expand into multiple branches. More importantly, judging by the original series, she would grow up to be a stunning beauty. Best of all, working at Ichiraku Ramen made her extremely safe. She was a character who survived until the very end without him having to worry. From her values to her features, she was a perfect existence. His goal was to get married, have children, and live a stable life. He couldn't go around trying to woo the high-profile characters. Those girls were magnets for trouble. Only Ayame was right for him. It was decided. From now on, his favorite foods would be yakitori, grilled rice balls, and Ichiraku Ramen. Swoosh. Swoosh. Suddenly, several figures flickered across the rooftops of Konoha without any attempt at concealment. Whoosh. They were all wearing masks. Judging by their speed and the fact that they weren't hiding their presence, they were clearly on urgent business. That's likely related to the intelligence the Anbu mentioned to Old Man Hiruzen today. Konoha is making a move. Tonbo analyzed the situation. It was clear the third had more to say to him earlier, but he had left in a hurry once the Anbu arrived. It had to be something from the front lines. The current war was a meat grinder. Tonbo knew that well. Every exchange of intelligence meant a change in plans. Based on his knowledge of the original plot, there were only 3 battlefronts left: Sunagakur, Kumogakure, and Kurigakure. Since the fight with Iwagakure was over, the third Reikage incident should be happening around this time. The end of the war wasn't far off. This also meant that some of the most famous scenes in would occur within the next year. Might Dai opening the 8 gates to save Guy, Genma, and Ebisu, turning the 7 ninja swordsmen into the Lucky 3. Kakashi piercing Rin Nohara's chest while Obito watched, leading to Obito's psychological outbreak. Minato Namikaze succeeding as the 4th Hokage. Orochimaru defecting from Konoha. Thinking about the events of the coming year, Tonbo was just glad they wouldn't be happening to him. As a former viewer, he might have thought about fixing these tragedies, but as a transmigrator, he only wanted to live a peaceful life. His abilities were limited. Without a system, he simply had to say sorry to the world. Ha! Captain Tonbo, you finally showed up for a mission. Have you been living comfortably at home lately? Quote. At the Konoha Analysis Team headquarters, Shimon immediately stepped forward and winked the moment he saw Tonbo. Knock it off. What's the mission today? They actually sent an Anbu to call me. Early this morning, Tonbo had been planning to go to Ichiraku to build a rapport with Ayame when a T-masked shinobi appeared in his room. He was told that by order of the Hokage, he was to report to the analysis team immediately for a mission. Honestly, is a mission more important than me getting a wife? Of course, he still showed up obediently. This job was safe, and he didn't want to get fired. Plus, it was good for his growth. Go to the briefing room. Squad leader Inoichi will explain everything, Shimon said. Tonbo followed Shimon into the depths of the base. Past heavy security, through dim corridors echoing with the occasional shrill scream, they walked for about 2.5 minutes before reaching the workspace. Many people were already waiting. In the center stood Yamanaka Inoichi. All right, everyone is here. Now, I will IGN the tasks. Yamanaka Denko, Interrogation Room 101. Hajiri Shimon, Interrogation Room 102. Tobatake Tonbo, Interrogation Room 404. Dokuraku Mawashi, Interrogation Room 405. Inoichi ignored the work methodically. It was clear that the distribution for Chunin and Genin was different. The higher the prefix of the interrogation room, the more experienced the enemy ninja, and the analyzer, nay. Dead to be. Anime and manga. After the IGN ments were finished, Tonbo followed a support ninja to a room deep in the facility. The path here was brighter, lit by torches along the walls. Entering interrogation room 404, there was only a head sitting there. That's right. No body. Next to it was a piece of equipment that looked like a helmet. This is a spiritual amplifier. It can boost a ninja's spiritual energy. It provides a MIV boost when it comes to enhancing perception and reading memories. Just put it on and execute your jutsu, the support ninja explained. Tonbo's eyes lit up. War aftermath. What? The Raikage is dead. That's impossible. He was the strongest man in our village. Damn it. Those bastards from Iwagakure. They only won by outnumbering him. The battle between the stone and the leaf is over. The yellow flash has appeared on our front. The pressure is becoming unbearable. Quote. Fragments of information were extracted from the brain by Tonbo Tobitake. Wearing the spiritual amplifier made the process incredibly easy. As expected, the battle between the Third Raikage and the Iwagakure forces had indeed taken place. The current shifts in the war were exactly due to his death, combined with the conclusion of the conflict between Konoha and Iwagakure. From the memories, it was clear that the AB combo was already renowned. The duo had used their overwhelming strength to command the respect of the Kumogakure shinobi. However, once Minato Namikaze joined the fray, he was immediately dispatched by Orochimaru to intercept them. After only a few rounds of engagement, both sides retreated. The death of the Cloud's leader had caused chaos in their internal command. Despite their high overall military strength, facing a two-front offensive from Konoha and Iwagakure had finally exhausted them. I have to say, Kumogakure is impressive. Their fighting spirit is relentless, Tonbo thought. Kumogakure had actually been the one to initiate hostilities against Iwagakure, a bold move. Fighting on two fronts was something Tonbo hadn't paid much attention to while watching the anime. The owner of this head was only a chunin from the Cloud, and since he was already dead, the memories didn't contain much critical intelligence. However, the insights into the nature transformation of lightning release were well worth studying. It also made him realize just how incredible Kakashi was for creating the Chidori at the age of 12. No wonder he was promoted to Jonin so young. That kind of extreme application of nature transformation, mastering both shape and nature simultaneously, was usually a level of control reserved for high GH level Jonin. The techniques involved weren't just about turning chakra into electricity, there were layers of complexity. It seemed that trying to self-teach the Chidori just for fun was going to be impossible. The Rasengan was equally out of reach. If Chidori was the peak of nature transformation, then Rasengan was the peak of shape transformation. He had tried a few months ago. Although his chakra reserves weren't MIV, he wanted to pay homage to the original protagonist's signature technique. He quickly discovered that the technique involved far more nuances than the simple explanation Jiraiya gave in the original series. The anime likely simplified the process for the sake of the plot, leaving out many technical details. Once the reading was finished, Tonbo took a pen and paper and wrote down the extracted intelligence one by one. He was meticulous, recording everything from complete segments to broken phrases, from childhood habits to ninjutsu training. He performed his duties as a worker to perfection. In the analysis team, once the intelligence was written down, the documents were fed to superiors. They would then summarize all the data, extract the vital bits, and hand them over to the Anbu, who delivered them to the Hokage. After handing over the files, the support ninja spoke up. Oh, right. Inoichi mentioned that since this is your first time in the Konoha Analysis headquarters, you might not be familiar with all the procedures. He asked me to inform you. Huh, is there more? Tonbo asked. I've finished the work. Shouldn't I be heading home for dinner? Because enemies had specialized corpse processing units to prevent intelligence leaks, the analysis team didn't actually have as much work as one might imagine, except during peak combat periods. It's like this. While working within the village, the volume of mind-reading tasks is generally low. To ensure resources aren't wasted, you are encouraged to visit the analysis team's library. It contains many courses on intelligence analysis which are vital for a ninja of your specialization. The ninja continued, of course, if you aren't interested in that, you can also take on simple tasks to ease the village. He then listed a variety of odd jobs Tonbo could do during his downtime. Tonbo understood immediately. Essentially, analysis team members were like bricks, used wherever a gap needed filling. No wonder in the anime, the leaf gatekeepers were always seen doing logistics, gate guarding, or proctoring exams. Speaking of which, Azumo Kamizuki and Katetsu Hagane were my CL mates. I wonder how they're doing. Entering the analysis team library, Tonbo looked around. It was roughly the size of a football field, with row after row of bookshelves. He flipped through a book at random. It was filled with past case studies on intelligence analysis, macro analysis, logical analysis, micro analysis. It was comprehensive, focusing on starting big, filling in the small details, and using logic to leave no stone unturned. It wasn't just one subject, either. It was supported by mathematics, geography, medicine, logic, ninjutsu theory, and sealing arts. If you wanted to know an enemy's travel time, you needed geography and math, combined with standard shinobi movement speeds, to calculate the distance from their base. Tonbo's mind was sharp, and he found the reading fascinating. Before long, he was completely immersed. As they say, if you understand it, it's enthralling. If you don't, it's a bore. He was definitely enthralled. Days turned into weeks. Each day at the analysis team involved mind reading and intelligence processing. After work, Tonbo would visit Ichiraku Ramen. His father, Tosei Tobatake, began to wonder if there was something wrong with him. What about my home-cooked meals? Tosei even followed him once to see where he was eating. When he saw Yame at Ichiraku, Tosei felt a wave of relief. His son had grown up. Not just into a chunin, but he was already looking for a wife. From then on, Tosei only cooked for himself. Aside from work, Tonbo practiced and developed his ninjutsu. With his high talent and the occasional complete jutsu found in enemy memories, he wasn't going to waste any opportunity. He even used some of his earnings to exchange for genjutsu scrolls from the village. After all, those stone-willed Iwagakure ninja and the hot-headed Kumogakure brutes weren't exactly masters of the subtle arts. Through the memories he read, Tonbo watched the war slowly wind down. First, Kumogakure withdrew its troops to defend its own territory. Next, Iwagakure retreated following the Cloud's withdrawal. Sunagakure elected Rasa as the fourth Kazekage, and he submitted a letter of surrender, taking the burden of the village upon his shoulders. Now, only the aftermath of the war remained. As he had predicted, by being a steady worker, life in the analysis team was quite comfortable. Or rather, it was comfortable for him. Others found absorbing too many memories exhausting. Shimon, for instance, complained to him daily that he was on the verge of a mental breakdown from all the mind reading. The Will of Fire. Animated films. Konoha. Akamichi Yakiniku Restaurant. Haha. Minato truly lives up to his reputation as Lord Jiraiya's disciple. He actually managed to sway the tide of over half the battlefield single-handedly. Inoichi Yamanaka had brought several subordinates here to treat them for their hard work over the past few days. Gulp. Tonbo Tobatake stuffed a grilled chicken wing into his mouth. Ever since he decided to pursue Ayame, it had been a long time since he'd treated himself to barbecue. Hearing the department head's words, he smiled and remarked, "Indeed. Senior Minato and Lord Orochimaru are truly powerful. I heard that during the meeting, Lord Third Hokage proposed that he would retire and enjoy his old age once the war ends. Shimon asked curiously, bringing up the latest village rumors. Smack. Mawashi Dokuraku slapped him on the back of the head. Don't wag your tongue about things you shouldn't. We don't even know who the next successor will be. Despite his words, his eyes were fixed on Inoichi Yamanaka. Inoichi laughed. It's true, but no decision has been made on who will take over yet. There's no need to say it. It will definitely be a choice between Lord Orochimaru and Senior Minato Namikaze, Tonbo stated confidently. Very confidently. Anime and manga. Inoichi Yamanaka showed appreciation for his analysis. Currently, the most likely candidates were indeed the third's disciple, Orochimaru, and Minato Namikaze. These two had the greatest merits and the loudest fame in this war. One won the Battle of Kikyopi, and the other won the Battle of Kanabi Bridge. Both were exceptionally strong jonin. However, the fact that Tonbo realized this surprised him. For someone in the intelligence department to deduce this simply from the single data point of the third's retirement was impressive. It seems he really is suited to be a member of the analysis CL, Inoichi thought, becoming more satisfied with Tonbo. The others thought about it and found it made sense. Come. Cheers. In a few days, Lord Orochimaru and the others will return. Prepare yourselves to attend the funerals. Yes, sir. The war was over. The troops were returning to the village. Whoosh, whoosh. Training ground number 98. Ah! A miserable scream rang out, as if someone had seen something terrifying. Hey, can you practice dispelling Genjutsu once in a while? You're a sensory ninja. You have talent in this area, you know. Tonbo felt quite speechless as he released the hell viewing technique he had cast on Shimon. After the technique was lifted, Shimon snapped back to reality, looking at Tonbo with lingering fear. I have been practicing. You're just a freak. How do you make your Genjutsu so hard to break? I clearly dispelled it, but then I fell right back in. Quote. How to. D in expert content. As that's so. I guess I'm just too strong. Tonbo scratched his head. To make Shimon lose his composure with a simple Genjutsu meant the past few days of training hadn't been wasted. You still haven't said how you did it, Shimon asked curiously. He had disrupted his chakra exactly as they were taught in the academy. Why did he get caught again? Tonbo pointed to his head. Because I modified the Temple of Nirvana Jutsu. I integrated my insights from the psycho-mind transmission, treating the Genjutsu as a piece of memory information implanted into the enemy's chakra. As long as the enemy accepts the concept that they've fallen into a Genjutsu, that information becomes a seed. Unless they realize the problem lies within their own subconscious, the victim essentially casts the jutsu on themselves repeatedly. Quote. Doesn't that mean if they don't realize it, they'll live in your Genjutsu forever? Shimon was deeply shocked. Was this even still the Temple of Nirvana Jutsu? HMPH, serves you right for still being a genin. As long as you have no fear, you won't get caught, Tonbo said, very satisfied. The experiment was a success. How can someone have no fear? Shimon muttered. Just now, he had seen himself struck by a stray shuriken on the battlefield, dying on the spot. Tonbo continued. I'll teach you another way to deal with it. This technique has a glaring weakness. Ultimately, it just implants a suggestion. As a sensory ninja, if you can briefly overcome the fear, you can use your high-level perception to specifically disrupt the seed in your subconscious with chakra. Quote. Really? Try it on me again. Shimon's eyes lit up. The corner of Tonbo's mouth curled. Hook, line, and sinker. Here it comes. He formed a seal and pointed. Shimon suddenly felt himself back on the battlefield, surrounded by stray bullets and hidden weapons. This time, he remembered Tonbo's words. He forced himself not to be swept away by the illusion, focusing instead on perceiving his own memories and emotions. Sure enough, after a moment, he found a foreign point of information. He gave his chakra a targeted nudge. The illusion vanished instantly. The battlefield was gone as if it never existed. Seeing Shimon break free in an instant, Tonbo raised an eyebrow. It seemed his technique still needed some refinement. I knew it. Next time, once I'm ready, I won't lose again. Shimon looked defiant. They were CL mates. Their grades had been similar, but after a stint on the battlefield, Tonbo had not only become stronger but had also been promoted to Chunin. Hey, do you think you could beat Kakashi or Hayama now? They had only been CL mates with Kakashi for one semester, but the brilliant Kakashi was hard to forget. Hayama Shirakumo, due to his outstanding talent, had also graduated early for the war during their 4th year at the academy. Now, one was a Jonin and the other a Tokubetsu Jonin. You brat, are those two people I can beat? They're already Jonin. Tonbo felt Shimon was trying to use others to vent his frustration. If Tonbo said he could fight them, Shimon would probably egg him on to start a fight after the war. If he said he couldn't, Shimon would feel better about having been beaten just now. Hee, but those two really are amazing. Jonin at 12 years old. That guy Inabi Uchiha is still just a Chunin like you. Quote. Shimon felt the gap between people was immense. He was still a genin while others were skyrocketing. What's the point of comparing these things? Tonbo said. Winter is silent, yet it freezes 10,000 miles of mountains and rivers. The wind is wordless, yet it blows away the red and purple of spring. We are all parts contributing to Konoha. No one is nobler than another. They just have better talent and thus, greater responsibility. If you want to compare yourself to them, compare your contributions, not useless combat power. Combat power is for stopping enemies and securing survival. It's not a luxury item for vanity or measuring yourself against your comrades. Quote. Anime and manga. As Tonbo spoke, he thought to himself, promoting the will of fire must be done at all times, because this is the correct answer for the next version of Konoha. Hearing this, Shimon felt himself instantly fired up. Tonbo was right. He too was silently contributing to Konoha. Unknown to them, their conversation was being watched. Hiruzen Sarutobi, having finished his busy workload, had thought of the boy with the bandage wrapped around his head. He had used the telescope technique to take a look and happened to overhear their exchange. Winter is silent, yet it freezes 10,000 miles. The wind is wordless. Hiruzen smiled. As expected, a child who has inherited the will of fire. At this age, he already understands its true essence. The crying might guy. Rumble. Tobitake Tonbo was in the middle of reading a memory when he suddenly sensed a sharp vibration. The tremor was faint, but distinct. What was that noise? As a sensory ninja who had integrated a wealth of experience from enemy memories, he analyzed the vibration and concluded that a fierce battle was taking place near the village. Tiger. Ceasing his current task, Tonbo refined his chakra and activated his sensory ability. Movements within a 3-kilometer radius slowly filtered into his mind. He focused specifically on the vibrations. As he neared the source, the perception became clearer. Southeast of the village. It was beyond his normal sensory range, but through his months of study, combining geographical location, air density, and mathematical formulas, he deduced the battle was not far from the village borders. Combining this with the scope of the tremors, it was a clash involving at least Jonin-level ninjutsu. Normally, he would assume this was a fight involving giant summoned beasts or tailed beasts. However, based on the original story he remembered, the timeline, and the location, there was a high probab. ILITY that his CL mates were in trouble and might die had ignited his red steam. Behind me, live on with Pion, youth, and a smile. Recalling the scene from his past life, Though the exact words were hazy, Dai must have said something like that to Guy and the others. Back then, Tonbo had actually teared up watching it. Emblé. Just then, a command rang out. Tonbo pushed his thoughts aside and hurried to the Emblé Hall. The members of the analysis team were emerging one by one. Emergency mission. Proceed to the main gate immediately to coordinate scouting with the Anbu dispatched by the Hokage. Tobatake Tonbo. Dokuraku Mawashi. Before everyone had even arrived, Yamanaka Inoichi was shouting orders. Now, those whose names were called, move out. Yes, sir. Tonbo and the others vanished in a swoosh of body flicker. I hope this isn't the war starting back up, Inoichi sighed. He hadn't expected such a MIV combat signature so close to the village. Swoosh, swoosh. Leaping across the rooftops of Konoha via body flicker, Tonbo's expression was grim. He hoped there wouldn't be any unforeseen accidents. With himself as a transmigrator in the mix, he couldn't guarantee the plot was following the original script to the letter. The original story could only serve as a reference now. Once we meet the Anbu, follow their lead in everything. Understood. Mawashi said to the team. He was acting as the squad leader. Yes, sir. They soon arrived at the main gate. Mawashi gave a hand signal. 2 squads of Anbu were already waiting. Seeing Mawashi's signal, the masked shinobi immediately recognized them as the support sent by the village. The blonde Anbu captain returned a signal. Move out. Without a hint of wasted motion, the Anbu captain gave the order. So efficient. As expected of the Anbu. Tonbo thought. The existence of hand signals truly boosted efficiency. No wonder there were specialized clees for signals and codes. Fortunately, Tonbo had studied them well and kept up with the village's periodic updates. The signals just now confirmed their identities, numbers, and indicated that details would be discussed on the move. They sped through the trees. Mawashi asked, "What are the Hokage's instructions?" The Anbu captain replied, "A battle with MIV energy signatures has occurred near the village. It's possible another village is unwilling to accept defeat and is attempting a pincer move on Konoha's rear. To ensure the village's safety, we are to scout for intelligence. You are responsible for sensing enemy movements." Understood. The analysis team ninja activated their sensory jutsu, scanning for any sign of hostiles. After several minutes of travel, 3 chakra signatures appeared in Tonbo's perception. Judging by the volume, they were at a genin level. He glanced at his colleagues and realized they hadn't sensed them yet. It seemed not everyone's sensory range was as vast as his. 11 o'clock direction, approximately 3 kilometers. 3 chakra signatures detected. Levels are roughly genin, though I can't rule out a disguise. Quote. Tonbo didn't hide his ability. He was a sensory ninja, a treasure of Konoha. Aside from enemy villages, no one would want to harm him for being talented. The others looked at him with surprise. Such a powerful sensory range. The Anbu captain prepared for combat. Set traps within 1 kilometer. The rest of you, prepare for an ambush. Continue tracking their movements. Yes, sir, Tonbo complied. He suspected those 3 signatures were Might Guy, Ebisu, and Genma Shiranui. But he still maintained a combat-ready posture, ready to fire his tools at a moment's notice. Soon after, the others picked up the signatures as well. Father. In the dim forest, 3 small figures were sprinting frantically. They were in a wretched state, especially the boy in the green jumpsuit, who was covered in tears and snot. Ebisu and Genma were in equally low spirits. Just moments ago, they thought they were dead. They had encountered 7 terrifying enemies. If it hadn't been for Guy's dad showing up, they wouldn't have even had a chance to run. Looking at the sobbing Guy, they couldn't believe his eternal genin father was actually strong enough to take on all 7 at once. Pant, pant. After running for a while, the 3 were exhausted. They leaned against a MIV tree. Father. Guy wiped his tears, but his eyes were like springs. The more he wiped, the more they flowed. Guy, it's okay. Your dad is so strong. He'll definitely beat the enemies, Genma comforted him. Ebisu added, that's right. Your dad is amazing. He'll definitely win. Hearing this, Guy cried even harder. You don't understand. Father taught me that move can only be used when your most precious friends and family are in danger. After using it, sob. Ebisu and Genma looked at each other, finally understanding what Guy meant. A technique that allowed a genin to fight 7 jonin couldn't be simple. They had only been holding on to a sliver of false hope. But your father said not to waste your youth. Crying won't help. We have to get stronger so our comrades don't get hurt again, Ebisu said. It was all he could offer. Right. I can't cry. I have to get stronger, inherit my father's path, and protect my comrades. Ebisu's words were like a ray of light piercing Guy's heart. I can't fail my youth. I will get stronger and protect those I cherish. Quote. Guy finally stopped his tears, a look of resolve filling his eyes. Yo, isn't that Guy? Why the long face? Just as they were about to continue their flight toward Konoha to report the 7 ninja swordsmen, a familiar voice rang out. Looking up, they saw a figure with bandages wrapped around his head, leaving only his mouth visible, standing on a branch and looking down at them. Several Anbu were surrounding him. Tobitake Tonbo. Might die. Anime and manga. It seems they are allies from the village. What happened? Seeing that Tobitake Tonbo recognized them, the Anbu captain lowered his guard and halted his attack. Lord Anbu, please save my father. He's fighting the 7 ninja swordsmen. Seeing those masks, Guy felt as though he had finally found his savior. Everyone present was stunned. The 7 ninja swordsmen. What were they doing here? Say no more. Lead the way. After carefully sensing the trio to ensure they weren't enemies in disguise, Tonbo approached them. He wove hand seals and tapped each of them on the shoulder. Guy, Ebisu, and Genma felt a strange sensation. Suddenly, their physical strength seemed to flow back into them, making their previous exhaustion feel like a mere illusion. Hearing Tonbo's command, they nodded to the Anbu and turned to lead the way. Swoosh. Swoosh. Relay the intel to Lord Hokage. Request immediate backup. When dealing with shinobi of the 7 ninja swordsmen's caliber, the Anbu captain had to take it seriously. They were the absolute elite of Kurigakure. Tonbo gave a mental thumbs up. This decisive leadership made the team feel secure. Martial arts. Understood. An Anbu summoned a messenger hawk, strapped the intel to its leg, and sent it soaring back toward Konoha. Screech. We're here, but the battle seems to be over. They finally reached the battlefield. It was a scene of absolute devastation, with everything within 100-meter radius completely pulverized. Father. Guy immediately spotted Might Die lying on the ground and lunged forward. Tonbo followed close behind. That familiar green jumpsuit was shredded, leaving only enough to cover the essentials. Dai's body was charred like coal, and his eyes were wide and white, staring upward. One look was enough to tell that he had exhausted every drop of his life force in this fight. Let the senior rest in peace, Tonbo said, patting Guy's shoulder. He truly admired Dai's sacrifice. Consequently, he had no intention of reading the man's memories to steal the 8 inner gates. Besides, the village would never permit it. Kuriarer Kushimaru, wielder of the longsword Nuibari. Akabe no Jinin, wielder of the blunt sword Kabutowari. Munashi Jinpachi, wielder of the blast sword Shibuki. And Augustus, wielder of the twin sword Haramakare. The Anbu captain and his team looked at the 4 corpses and the legendary blades beside them, their faces masks of disbelief. Anime and manga. Who exactly was he? They whispered, looking at Might Die with profound shock. Stay alert. 3 are missing. They might still be alive, the battle-hardened Anbu captain barked, snapping back to reality. Everyone immediately went on guard, scanning the surroundings for any remaining hostiles. Hearing the order, Tonbo suppressed his emotions and pushed his sensory range to its limit. After a minute, he confirmed he couldn't find any enemies. "Captain, no enemies detected," he reported. "The surroundings are clear. The other three have likely fled," the other sensory ninja added, pooling their findings. The Anbu captain nodded. "Clean up the battlefield. Do not leak any of this intelligence." "Yes, sir. As members of the analysis team, we are prepared for this." "We'll handle the bodies," Dokuraku Mawashi suggested. The Anbu captain agreed. Tonbo pulled out a sealing scroll and unfurled it. It was covered in intricate formulas with the character for corpse written in the center. Snake, tiger, boar. Upon completing the seals, the formula spread over Might Dai's body, covering him before slowly drawing him into the scroll. Tonbo tied the scroll and handed it to the Anbu captain. The others finished securing the enemy corpses. Meanwhile, the Anbu took possession of the 4 ninja swords, sealing them and strapping them to their backs. Guy and his teammates could only watch in silence. Guy's eyes were bright as he looked at the Anbu. Plucking up his courage, he stepped toward the captain. "Lord Anbu, can I join the Anbu?" If you want to join, you must first become a Chunin and then apply to the Hokage." "I don't make those calls," the captain chuckled. Seeing that Guy's father had killed 4 elite Kurigaker Jonin single-handedly, he figured the boy had immense potential. If he were Hokage, he'd recruit him in a heartbeat. Tonbo was speechless. Ebisu and Genma shared the look. "Guy," Tonbo interjected, "don't waste the Anbu's time. The priority is getting these bodies and weapons back. We can talk about the rest in the village. It's not safe here. Right. Move out. Back to the village. Maintain defensive formation." Swoosh. Though grieving, Guy knew his duty. He and his teammates followed closely. "Oh, right," Tonbo said to the 3 of them as they moved. "About that jutsu I cast on you earlier. Once we're back, make sure to rest for a full day. Let your bodies recover. Absolutely no training. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. What kind of jutsu was that? Are there side effects?" Ebisu asked nervously. One moment they were dead tired, and the next they felt like they had infinite energy. Genma frowned, analyzing the sensation. "It wasn't an elemental jutsu, nor was it medical ninjutsu. My body feels fine right now. Wait, was it a genjutsu?" "Aha." As expected of Genma, calm and sharp as ever, Tonbo smiled. "Exactly. It's a genjutsu I call self-inflation. It sends a false signal to your brain, tricking your consciousness into believing you are in peak condition. In this state, your brain unconsciously squeezes your cells for every drop of energy. It's a form of overdrawing your physical reserves, so you need time to repair the damage." The 2 honor students immediately understood the principle. Only Guy remained confused. Knowing Guy's personality, his teammates put all their effort into convincing him that he needed a day of rest to mourn his father properly, finally halting Guy's urge to immediately start training in the name of youth. Might Guy. Such a simple, sunny guy, yet surprisingly sensitive. More so than Kakashi, Tonbo thought, watching him from the corner of his eye. Guy had already accepted the reality of his father's death. He wasn't just brushing off his teammates' words, he was actively responding to show them they didn't need to worry about him. This mixture of burning pion and quiet consideration made him a remarkable man. As for the jutsu, self-inflation, it was just a crude genjutsu Tonbo had developed as a form of self-hypnosis. It worked well on allies, but it wasn't yet viable against enemies, as it required the target to trust the caster to some extent. Swoosh. As the CL mates chatted, another Anbu squad appeared ahead, the requested backup. Soon, they were back within the safety of Konoha. After filing their reports, everyone headed home. Was the analysis team finished for the day? Yes. Tonbo had hoped for a chance to analyze the Jonin corpses to gain some high-level experience, but it seemed that wasn't in the cards. After completing his task, he headed straight to Ichiraku Ramen for a giant bowl and a chance to check in on Ayame. Interacting with CLMates. So, this is a classified incident. At the training ground, Tonbo Tobitake spoke with Guy. Might Guy nodded. Yeah, Lord Third told me not to speak to anyone about what happened. Quote, alright. I was just curious how your dad, a genin, managed to take on 7 Jonin at once. Seeing that Guy's mood was still low but that he was gradually pulling himself out of the grief, Tonbo didn't press further. It would be a lie to say he wasn't curious about the 8 inner gates. It was, after all, the most extraordinary taijutsu in the world. However, a chunin like him wasn't highly ranked enough to handle such top-secret information. Yosh. Tonbo. Let's have a youthful duel. Might Guy was full of enthusiasm. It seemed his father's death had caused his youth to burn even more fiercely. Huh, isn't your target Kakashi? Tonbo asked. Please don't swap targets to me, he thought. I can't handle that level of youthful intensity. Guy said seriously, Kakashi hasn't returned to the village yet. Besides, you're a chunin now, so you must be very strong. I want to challenge you. Well, since you've invited me so sincerely, I'll spar with you for a bit. Tonbo also wanted to know exactly how far Guy's taijutsu had progressed at 13. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. Swish. Swish. The two didn't waste another word. They moved apart to a set distance, performed the seal of confrontation, and focused their gazes simultaneously. Nearby, Ebisu and Genma Shiranui watched the two eager fighters with a look of helplessness. However, they watched the battle intently. They knew Guy's strength well, but they didn't know much about their CL mate Tonbo's current level. They only knew he had been to the front lines and was a member of the analysis team. More importantly, he was already a chunin, leaving them far behind in rank. Bang! Bang! The battle began. Guy's taijutsu was indeed formidable. At only 13, his mastery of the Konoha-style strong fist was already extremely refined. His shuriken and kunai throwing skills were also at a solid, mid-tier level. Facing Tonbo's shuriken attacks, he could counter with his own or parry them with a kunai. It was clear that Tonbo wasn't the only one who had grown during the war. Tonbo realized that without using special tactics, it would be impossible to defeat Guy easily. He had no intention of using offensive ninjutsu. Instead, he engaged Guy directly in taijutsu. These two. They're growing so fast. Genma's scalp felt numb as he watched. Ebisu nodded. I can't believe Tonbo's taijutsu can go toe-to-toe with Guy's. It felt surreal to see them evenly matched. In the academy, Tonbo's grades were only upper middle, and as a sensory-type ninja, he shouldn't theoretica. LLY be able to rival Guy in physical combat. That taijutsu looks familiar, but it's not a standard Konoha style, Genma analyzed, observing Tonbo's movements. Ebisu agreed. There are elements of the Iwagakure style and the Kumogakure style mixed in with Konoha's strong fist. He probably picked up those habits while reading enemy memories and integrated them into his own style. Both Ebisu and Genma were the honor student types of ninja. Their grasp of academy knowledge and their daily observations were top-notch. They quickly broke down Tonbo's fighting style. Just as they suspected, this was Tonbo's personal improvement on taijutsu. He knew a ninja could never truly separate themselves from physical combat. Whether facing enemies who could absorb ninjutsu or those immune to genjutsu, strong taijutsu was Guy's ultimate insurance policy for survival. This was the result of 6 months of progress. It wasn't just genjutsu he had been practicing. And the corner of Tonbo's mouth curled up. While blocking Guy's attack with one hand, he wove a seal with the other. Guy's pupils shrank. Illusion clones. In Guy's eyes, the Tonbo in front of him suddenly multiplied. He was surrounded. The clones attacked from every direction with shuriken, kunai, and ninjutsu. Thud. Dazzled and confused, Guy was thrown backward by a direct hit. He tumbled several times on the ground before springing back up. His two teammates were stunned. The end came too quickly. It was as if Tonbo had tested Guy with taijutsu for a moment and then ended it instantly. If they hadn't seen it wrong, Guy had frozen for a split second, as if his vision had been interfered with, and was defeated in that window. Dictionaries and encyclopedias. Ha ha. It's over. Guy, your taijutsu has improved again. Quote. Tonbo formed the seal of reconciliation and laughed. Inwardly, he noted that no matter how strong Guy would become, he was still green right now. His physical stats were high, but his combat experience was lacking. A simple genjutsu shouldn't have finished him that easily. Might Guy scratched his head and gave a thumbs up. Ah, as expected of the man who's already a chunin and a squad leader. I'm still far behind. I must punish my own laziness with 1,500 high kicks, starting now. Genma and Ebisu approached. What happened just now? Why did you daze out? Genma asked. Because of the angle, he hadn't seen Tonbo's one-handed seal. Guy stopped his punishment briefly to answer. I was careless. I fell for Tonbo's clone jutsu instantly. Clone jutsu. The two were baffled. They hadn't seen any clones at all. Tonbo explained, well, it's a type of genjutsu clone. Only the victim can see them. As long as you follow the standard genjutsu release taught at the academy, you can break it easily. This was his illusion clone, Genbunshin, developed based on the Oboro Bunshin of the Hidden Rain. Its advantage was low chakra consumption, though its downside was that a simple Kai release could break it. It wasn't as advanced as the holographic-style Oboro clones. The two nodded, making mental notes on how to counter it. They were true professionals. Tonbo, having absorbed the memories of so many ninja, understood the vital importance of information. He knew that somewhere out there, a black and white guy, Zetsu, might be watching. He didn't have a Kekkei Genkei, so he shouldn't be a primary target, but he wouldn't act as if he weren't being watched. Any information he let slip was calculated. The group spent the next while discussing survival methods during wartime, from intelligence analysis to chakra control. The level of detail was immense. They were all academic elites. Even Guy, whom many fans might remember as a hot-blooded youth who couldn't use ninjutsu, had many unique and sharp insights. Tonbo could see that Guy was actually very meticulous and observant, not a brainless brute. It made sense why he could later pull Rock Lee out of his pit of self-doubt. Tonbo learned quite a bit from his friend's perspectives, marveling at how useful his current brain was. Meanwhile, the other's impression of Tonbo changed significantly. Everything he pointed out was sharp, practical, and felt like it came from someone who had fought hundreds of battles. A genius, just like Kakashi. That was their unanimous thought. The fourth Hokage. Time flies. Tonbo Tobitake worked quietly and visited Ichiraku Ramen faithfully. His job was stable, and his conversations with Ayame were very pleasant. It was during this time that Orochimaru returned with his troops. Returning alongside him was Minato Namikaze. The main forces remained on the front lines to guard against other villages and prevent any sudden counterattacks. In the welcoming crowd, Tonbo did not see Orochimaru. He presumed the man didn't care for such atmospheres. It's finally over. With the war ending, things would be stable for a long time, aside from the Nine Tails incident. At this thought, he looked toward the escort team. He finally saw the legendary, Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze. Just as the rumors suggested, he radiated a very sunny disposition. One could tell how immense his fame was just by the level of cheering from the surrounding villagers. After getting a glimpse of the person he wanted to see, Tonbo turned and headed home. Their paths wouldn't cross much. Tonbo had no intention of clinging to big shots. He only needed to stay close to Yamanaka Inoichi. Being under the banner of the Inoshika Cho trio meant safety and clear political alignment, as well as high status. In the following days, a grand funeral was held for the fallen comrades of the war. All the high-ranking officials of Konoha, from Jonin to Genin, came to the cemetery to bid farewell. There, Tonbo saw the main cast of the story. Orochimaru, Minato Namikaze, Kakashi, Guy, many familiar faces. At this time, Orochimaru was still young, and Minato was only in his early 20s. Everyone was youthful. He also saw the pregnant Kushina Uzumaki. With her red hair and the Miv chakra he could feel just by sensing her, the overwhelming pressure made her impossible to miss. The funeral was solemn. For once, the third Hokage did not publicly preach his will of fire theory but instead observed a silent moment of grief for his departed comrades. The funeral ended. The war concluded. Konoha silently returned to its normal track. Tonbo heard news through the grapevine that the third indeed intended to elect a fourth Hokage. After a month of deliberation, a conclusion was finally reached. Minato Namikaze would succeed as the fourth Hokage. The village was buzzing with excitement. The third stepping down and Minato taking over was a move that won the hearts of the people. On the day of his inauguration, all the residents of Konoha watched the figure in the flying Hokage robe and his sunny smile. Aside from a few characters in the shadows, no one opposed him. Tonbo did not see Orochimaru there. He didn't know if the man was angry about not becoming the fourth or if he was busy with human experimentation. He also didn't see the legendary leader of Roots, Danzo Shimura. This left Tonbo with a bit of regret. It seemed that unless there was some special mission, he wouldn't be seeing him. Actually, it's better not to see him. I'll just go eat ramen today. Tonbo arrived at Ichiraku Ramen once again. When Uncle Tsuki saw him, he looked like he wanted to hit him with a rolling pin. This brat actually wants to pursue my daughter. However, out of professional integrity, he maintained his natural smile as he served the noodles. Tonkatsu ramen. Enjoy your meal. Thanks, uncle. Where's Ayame? Tonbo asked politely, his eyes scanning the shop. She went to deliver noodles to an elderly lady with mobility issues, Tsuki replied. He wasn't exactly dissatisfied with Tonbo, he just wasn't ready to be a father-in-law yet. How about I give you a hand? I'm quite nimble, Tonbo offered, seeing that the shop was busy while Ayame was away. Tsuki's expression tightened. No, I must be responsible for the deliciousness of the food I produce. You haven't learned the craft. I'm afraid you'll ruin my reputation. In this regard, he was absolutely uncompromising. Seeing Tsuki's persistence, Tonbo decided to compromise. How about this? I'll help you knead the dough. I'm a ninja. I have the strength. Without waiting for consent, he finished his bowl, stood up, and slipped into the prep area. Hey, don't just jump in. Tsuki was startled. But Tonbo had already started. After observing for so long, he might not be able to handle the secret seasonings, but he was very familiar with the kneading process. Flour, the right amount of water, kneading, slamming, rubbing, pulling, his movements were as smooth as flowing water. When the flour got dry, he appropriately dampened his palms to keep the dough hydrated. His superior mind told him exactly when the dough reached its peak texture, and his ninja senses allowed him to feel the perfect consistency. Tsuki watched in a daze. That technique, that level of skill, had he really never learned the craft? You brat, you clearly know the trade. You weren't being honest when you said it was your first time, Tsuki huffed, though he didn't stop making noodles for the customers. Tonbo laughed. I come here every day. I learned just by watching your hand movements. Look, even my current posture is copied from yours. With his help, Chuki's workload lightened significantly. The service speed increased. Seeing Tonbo's learning speed, Chuki felt quite satisfied. This kid's learning ability was impressive. If he really did become a son-in-law, he could inherit the shop after retiring as a ninja. With this thought, he actually began explaining the dough-making process and the finer details to Tonbo. Under his guidance, the already skillful Tonbo became even more proficient. Clatter. Just then, a blond man walked in with a red-haired woman. The woman's belly was quite large. Lord Fourth Hokage. Tonbo was startled and immediately bowed. Good grief, he's been inaugurated for less than half a day and he's already bringing his wife for noodles. You're a ninja, aren't you? Minato, whose perception was also top tier, said to Tonbo. Since it was the inauguration day, Tonbo wasn't on duty and wasn't wearing his forehead protector. Yes. Analysis team, under Yamanaka Inoichi, member of Dokuraku Mawashi's squad. Tobitake Tonbo, Tonbo replied honestly. He didn't dare be otherwise. Kushina was a Jinchuriki. He couldn't let his eyes wander. It would be bad if Minato suspected him of being a spy. Minato. Lord Hokage. He saw I was busy and stepped in to help me, Chuki interjected quickly, fearing Tonbo might get in trouble for working a side job. Haha. Kushina's belly is so big now. Just a few more months, right? At those words, Kushina, standing beside Minato, showed a happy smile and stroked her belly. Yes, it's coming soon. Minato committed Tonbo's name to memory. 1 tonkatsu ramen, 1 seafood ramen. Yes, Lord Hokage. Tonbo continued to help out. He had nothing to be guilty about. He was a bona fide successor of the Will of Fire. However, he preferred not to get involved with these major figures if possible. A ninja should just go to work and do their job well. The date. Kushina didn't cause too much trouble today, did he? Minato asked while waiting for his ramen. Kushina patted her stomach. Oh, stop it. Our baby is very well behaved. How could he cause trouble? I have a feeling that when he grows up, he'll be a man unlike Jiraiya sensei. You've worked hard. I'm sorry I can't be by your side every day. Quote. Don't be like that. You're doing it for the village, and now you've become the Hokage, right? You won't have to go out on missions as often anymore. As the couple chatted, they had eyes only for each other. Watching them, Chuki wore a nostalgic expression. Only Tobitake Tonbo was left speechless. Talk about public displays of affection. Swoosh, swoosh. With that mindset, the dough in his hands moved like a flying dragon. He quickly formed it into springy, chewy noodles. Ha! He presented them to Chuki, who inspected them and nodded, very satisfied with the texture. Shortly after, a steaming bowl of ramen was placed in front of Minato. Here you go, tonkatsu ramen. Please enjoy. Thank you, Chuki, Minato replied politely. Just then, Ayame walked in through the door, carrying a delivery box for noodles. Tonbo's eyes lit up. He put down his work and walked over. Let me help you. You must be tired. Let me wipe your sweat. He took the box and used a tissue to dab her forehead. Ayame didn't pull away. Instead, she beamed with a smile. Thank you. Don't mention it. Hee hee. Tonbo laughed, blushing. However, since his face was wrapped in bandages, no one could see it. The intimate scene naturally fell into the eyes of the two elite ninjas. Look, Minato, this boy is just as gentle as you are, Kushina said nostalgically. Minato had been exactly like that back in the day. Minato turned a bit red. Thinking back to doing such things at that age felt a bit embering. Haha. Well, we are both children who have inherited the will of fire. Quote. Minato's gaze swept over Tonbo. No wonder he's a ninja helping out in this shop. He's found love. Earlier, Minato had almost wondered if his own movements had been leaked. Ayame, I need help. Chuki's voice called from the back. Coming. I'll go help first. I'll come find you to play once we close up, Ayame said. Humph. Today is the day of the Hokage's inauguration, so I don't have to work. I'll stay and help too. Look, I've learned how to knead and pull noodles, hee. Quote. Tonbo followed Ayame to the workspace and showed her the dough he had prepared. Ayame poked at it. Wow. Amazing. It took me a long time to learn that. Receiving the compliment, Tonbo felt satisfied. A new brain really is useful. Learning these things is a breeze. Glancing at the Namikaze couple, he lifted his head high. Oh, by the way, you and Kakashi are CL mates, right? Minato asked, perhaps finished with his private conversation. Yes. Also Obito and Rin. I heard they were all studying under you, Lord Hokage. Tonbo's voice held a hint of envy. Kakashi's rapid growth to Jonin was inseparable from having a great teacher. Even with talent, combat experience on the battlefield doesn't just increase because of potential. A good teacher helps a disciple survive the rookie period quickly. Fortunately, Tonbo's own talent wasn't bad. He could make progress through the memories he read. Obito. Hearing that name, Minato's eyes dimmed for a moment. Failing to protect his disciple was a constant source of guilt. Obito has already ped away, Minato said. Ah. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend, Tonbo apologized repeatedly. Inwardly, he confirmed it. So it really happened. It seemed some things from the original story were still reliable. Are Kakashi and Rin doing alright then? As a CL mate, asking this showed his concern. Minato smiled. It's alright. No war is without casualties. That's why we must become stronger. To protect our comrades in the village, right? Exactly. This damn war. Tonbo spoke with genuine anger. He truly hated war. He would rather be a parasite in times of peace than a dragon in times of war. It was rare to chat with one of the most popular characters from the original series. Since Tonbo wasn't breaking any laws, he didn't feel the need to be restrained. He just had to watch his words and not reveal certain information. He spoke eloquently and freely, though he limited himself to casual chat and insights on ninjutsu. He didn't breathe a word about political trends or the future. This left a very good impression on Minato. This kid is talented, calm, and quick-witted. And very steady. He doesn't ask sensitive questions. Minato enjoyed the conversation, with Kushina chiming in occasionally. There was much laughter. Ayame watched Tonbo as he talked, her face flushing slightly. He sounds so handsome when he's serious. And since he was talking to the newly appointed fourth Hokage, he seemed even more charming. Bowl after bowl of noodles left Tonbo's hands, and bowl after bowl of ramen left Chuki's. Before long, the couple finished their meal. After saying goodbye to Tonbo, they departed. As the new Hokage, Minato likely had a mountain of work waiting. Watching the fourth leave, Tonbo's mind raced. From the conversation, he knew Rin wasn't dead yet, so, that incident hadn't happened. As for why Kakashi wasn't there, he was already a Jonin and was currently on a special mission, unable to even make it back for the inauguration. Alright, you two go out for a stroll. There aren't many customers now. I can handle things by myself. The sun began to set, and the lanterns outside flickered to life. The night market was beginning. Chuki felt a bit awkward seeing Tonbo and his daughter being so close in front of him. Even though he liked Tonbo, he wanted to shoo them out of sight, out of mind. Then I'm going out with Tonbo, Dad. Ayame was thrilled. She grabbed Tonbo and ran out. Sigh. Daughters don't stay at home forever, Chuki shook his head. Tonbo Nisan, can you take off the bandages while we walk together? Of course. If I'm accompanying Ayame May, I naturally have to show my face. Great. Ayame had a wonderful time with Tonbo. They caught goldfish, played darts, ate takoyaki and sushi. Even the bright moon could only shine down silently, forced to watch their public display of affection. Unfortunately, fate had other plans for Tonbo. An unwelcome guest interrupted their private world. Yo, isn't this Captain Tonbo? You actually have a girlfriend. While they were strolling leisurely, the voice of Shimon rang out. Quote. With dark lines appearing on his forehead, Tonbo turned around. He saw Shimon standing behind them, his face full of teasing mockery. Kakashi stabs Rin. What are you doing here, kid? Tonbo Tobitake quickly shot him a look, signaling him to beat it. But Shimon acted as if he hadn't seen it. Instead, he raised an eyebrow. Today is the day of the fourth's inauguration. Everyone is happy. The night market is quite lively, so I just came out for a stroll. I didn't expect to see that you actually have a girlfriend. His words made Ayame's face turn bright red, and her hand almost slipped from Tonbo's grasp. I'm not. HMPH. What does me having a girlfriend have to do with you? If you keep bothering me, I'll let you know the meaning of pain during our next spar, Tonbo threatened, tightening his grip on her hand. This time, Tonbo wasn't wearing his bandages. The intensity in his eyes startled Shimon, who immediately remembered the terrifying Genjutsu Tonbo had used during their previous practice. TCH. I'll find one too. Shimon's feet shuffled back, and he vanished from their sight. That's my colleague, Shimon. He's usually just a bit of a big mouth, Tonbo explained to Ayame. If Tonbo-kun says so. Ayame replied, her face still flushed with shyness. Her mind was stuck on his words. What does me having a girlfriend have to do with you? Shimon's interruption actually heightened the atmosphere between them. For the rest of the walk, Ayame acted shy and fidgety, a total departure from her usual generous self. Meanwhile, behind them, the sneaky Shimon was using every ounce of his ninja training, pushing his concealment and tracking skills to their peak. Damn it. Don't think you're so great just because you're a chunin. Next time, I'm definitely finding a girlfriend. Shimon bowed with his eyes. The date was just an interlude. Life had to continue. Since that night, although they hadn't done anything due to their age, their feelings for each other had grown significantly deeper. Tonbo went back to work. Every day after finishing his shift, he would return home to his father's cooking, with the image of a certain girl keeping him company in his heart. Then, one day, another mission arrived. A chunin from Kurigakure. Tonbo's mind traveled through the tunnel of memories. The man's past flickered in fragments. Nations, espionage, intelligence, ninjutsu. Information poured in bit by bit. Suddenly, after integrating and analyzing the data, a specific point of information entered Tonbo's mind. Kurigakure sent something into the land of fire through the border of the land of bears. Quote. His heart shook. This intelligence was already slightly outdated. A fair amount of time had passed since the event. He removed the sensory headgear and headed straight for Yamanaka Inoichi's office. Knock. Knock. Come in. Tonbo opened the door to find Inoichi processing documents. Lord Inoichi, there's a situation. From the Kurigakure ninja's memories, I discovered that 2 days ago, they seem to have secretly smuggled something hidden into the land of fire's borders via the land of bears. Quote. Oh. Give me the details, Inoichi focused. His subordinates wouldn't report so urgently without significant intel. According to the memories, there was an elite escort. Given the current state of Kurigakure, having suffered heavy losses among the 7 ninja swordsmen, I suspect they are preparing for retaliation against Konoha. However, since the 4th has just been inaugurated, Konoha is at its peak strength. Therefore, I speculate that whatever they smuggled in might involve a tailed beast. Quote. Tonbo recounted the memories first as a narrative and then provided his analysis. This was to ensure his superiors weren't biased by his conclusions before seeing the facts. A tailed beast. Inoichi was profoundly shaken. He reviewed the facts himself and followed Tonbo's logic. It was highly probable. And the timing. Put the intelligence and your analysis into a written report immediately and wait for a summons. Realizing the magnitude of the problem, Inoichi gave the order and hurried out the door. Tonbo sighed. This was likely the moment Kakashi stabs Rin. He had done all he could to help. He hoped there would be some change. This was out of pity for a CL mate, and also to put his own mind at ease. However, according to his calculations, the incident had likely already occurred. In the Hokage's office, Lord Hokage, urgent intelligence. Yamanaka Inoichi reported the findings to Minato Namikaze, adding his own insights to Tonbo's analysis. Minato listened and processed the information. Rin, tailed beast. Kakashi, land of bears. Kurigakure. Terrible. Umblay the Anbu and the sealing team immediately. Follow me. His own analysis gave Minato a sinking feeling. He immediately issued the orders. Half a day's journey from Konoha, inside a forest. Chirp, chirp. The sound of chirping lightning startled the birds. Kakashi's eyes widened, his pupils shrinking to pinpricks. His hand had pierced through Nohara Rin's chest. Behind Rin, a Kurigakure Jonin broke into a cold sweat. He had nearly been killed as well. Swoosh, swoosh. Minato Namikaze left the Anbu behind, moving at maximum speed with the body flicker technique. To ensure he didn't miss anything despite his flying Raijin, he pushed his speed to the limit. A yellow flash streaked through the woods, showcasing his true power as Hokage. The Anbu following him didn't dare slack off. If anything happened to the fourth, they would be held responsible. Everyone was pushing their body flicker to the max. When Minato arrived, he was greeted by a devastated landscape. Craters, fallen trees, and a ground littered with shuriken and kunai. There were corpses of ninja wearing Kurigakure protectors. And there was Kakashi, kneeling on the ground. In front of him lay his other disciple, Nohara Rin. Kakashi. Minato's voice brought Kakashi's eyes back to focus. Looking at the corpse on the ground, Minato closed his eyes briefly. Sensei. I killed Rin. Kakashi's eyes were vacant as he murmured to himself. Tonbo Tobitake had reported the intel and finished his written report. As for Kakashi's side, it was in the hands of fate. His current power wasn't enough to resist the conspiracies of Madara or Black Zetsu. Constant avoidance won't work, he thought. In the future, pain will destroy Konoha once. I can't pin my hopes on talk no jutsu, or pain having a change of heart. Before that happens, I must master a way to avoid the almighty push, or resolve the person who triggers it before he starts. Kakashi's tragedy cut deep into his heart once more. These were accidents beyond his control. He could find ways to avoid war for himself, but his father, Ayame, and Uncle Tsuki didn't have that option. Therefore, stay low and develop quickly. No slacking off. At the same time, a new thought took root. Facing monsters like tailed beasts and Kekkei Genkai, ordinary ninjutsu were too limited. He had to create more advantages. He had considered synthesizing a Kekkei Genkai, but the difficulty was too high and his current development didn't allow it. A Kekkei Genkai was just an attribute, he would still need to develop numerous jutsus for it. So, he set his sights on secret techniques. Secret techniques that could amplify Genjutsu, much like the clan-inherited jutsus of the Ino Shika-cho. Secret techniques. A Kekkei Genkai is born when chakras of different elemental natures are combined in a specific way to create a special property. Secret techniques, however, according to what Shikamaru Nara said in the anime, are created by combining spiritual energy and physical energy in a unique ratio. Tonbo Tobitake carefully analyzed the information he had, organizing his knowledge. First was Kekkei Genkai. This went without saying. Most shinobi knew about it. But when it came to secret techniques, very few possessed real insight. Developing a secret technique was no less dangerous than developing a Kekkei Genkai. The danger lay in the ratio. One didn't know what specific balance would allow spiritual and physical energies to create a stable, special chakra when not mixed in the standard 1:1 ratio. Only this specific chakra could serve as the foundation for a secret technique. It was perilous. If physical energy was insufficient, the resulting chakra tended to consume spiritual energy, and vice versa. This was the hurdle Tonbo needed to clear. He already had a plan. First, he would aim for a ratio favoring higher spiritual energy. Second, he had a boss from a famous secret technique clan whom he could ask for general knowledge regarding the creation of such techniques. As long as he didn't pry into the actual secrets of the Yamanaka clan, it should be fine. With his thoughts in order, the first priority was to go home and eat. One needs strength to get things done. After he had finished his meal, Yamanaka Inoichi summoned him. Entering the office, Tonbo saw not only Inoichi but also the fourth Hokage. Lord Hokage. Tonbo bowed. Tonbo, I came because I wanted to see you and get a clearer, first-hand account of the intelligence, Minato Namikaze said with a friendly smile. Is it regarding the hidden mist? Quote, yes. Since the Hokage requested it, Tonbo recounted the situation once more. He understood that Minato wanted to ensure no details were lost in translation through intermediaries, which also signaled how seriously the Hokage took the matter. Minato nodded repeatedly, showing his approval of Tonbo's detailed report. Truly a talent, just as the third said. After their previous encounter, Minato had looked into Tonbo's files. He discovered that the third had met him and even provided some guidance. According to the third's evaluation, Tonbo was a young man who truly inherited the will of fire. Now, it was clear his abilities were top tier among his peers. Once Tonbo finished his explanation, Minato gave him a small smile and vanished instantly. That was. Tonbo acted confused, feigning shock at the Hokage's sudden disappearance. Inoichi laughed. That is the flying ray Genjutsu. It's a forbidden technique developed by the second Hokage. Only the fourth has the talent to master it. Quote. So that's it. How enviable. I wish I could learn that too. Tonbo truly meant it. His talent was decent and his reflexes were excellent. Compared to ordinary ninja, he felt his only real weakness was his chakra reserves. Haha. That won't do. The flying Raijin is a forbidden technique with high risks during training. Only those recognized by the Hokage can study it, Inoichi explained. I see. By the way, boss, I have something I'd like to ask your advice on. Quote. What is it? Questions regarding the nature of secret techniques. You're an ambitious kid. I didn't realize you were so gifted. However, this is quite dangerous. Let me explain it to you in detail. Quote. Thank you, boss. As a superior, Inoichi was exceptionally qualified. Outside of work hours, he was easy to talk to. Facing Tonbo's request, he was generous with his advice and provided the best suggestions. Of course, as a head of the intelligence division, he knew exactly where to draw the line on what could and couldn't be said. Through their chat, Tonbo also learned that his recent intel had earned him a major merit. Time flew by. Although the war was over, post-war reconstruction was vital. Many things were being restored. For instance, strategic resources were slowly being made available to the public. Combat supplies like paper bombs and shuriken, which required special applications during the war, could now be bought at ordinary ninja tool shops. Tonbo threw himself into the work of village restoration. With the war over and fewer enemies, the workload of reading memories decreased. In his spare time, He took on various odd jobs, helping the Hokage organize documents or standing guard at the Konoha Gate. Indeed, he had become a gate god. Wherever there was a need, he was there. Seeing how hard he worked, Ayame prepared bento for him every day. This made him feel incredibly happy. He redoubled his training efforts. His progress on the secret technique accelerated, and his genjutsu reached a new level. In their daily spars, Shimon, Guy, and Ebisu suffered bitterly. Even a hot-blooded youth like Guy only dared to challenge him every few days. The problem was that even if you broke his genjutsu, the lingering emotions would haunt your heart. It was miserable. Clang. A blade parried a kunai and came to rest against Tonbo's neck. You lose, the masked youth, Kakashi said calmly. Ah, I still can't beat you, Kakashi. Tonbo raised his hands in a helpless gesture. You only lost because of the Sharingan, Kakashi said, lowering his weapon as his red eye spun slowly. He never expected this expert recommended by Guy to have such formidable genjutsu. Without the ocular power of the Sharingan, he wouldn't have been able to touch him. Furthermore, Tonbo's taijutsu was practically on par with his and Guy's. Haha, there's no such thing as relying on something for a ninja. If I'm relying on anything, it's my brain. Tonbo wouldn't say something as foolish as, I would have won if you didn't have the Sharingan. Ninja were ins. There was no need for talk of fairness or morality, other than the rule of not using forbidden techniques on comrades. But next time, your Sharingan won't be enough, Tonbo said with a confident grin. Kakashi paused, looking at him intently. Where did this confidence to rival the Sharingan come from? Having used it, Kakashi knew its value, insight that ordinary ninja couldn't hope to match, and a comprehends. I've resistance to genjutsu. He had broken Tonbo's illusion just now precisely because of the Sharingan. Ah, as expected of my eternal rival, you actually defeated Tonbo. Nearby, Guy cheered for Kakashi. He proceeded to shout that he would run 5 laps around Konoha as a reward for himself. Tonbo's face darkened with emberment. This art style was much more cringeworthy in person than in the anime. Kakashi felt the same way. Since Guy had been promoted to Chunin a few months ago, his challenges to Kakashi had become even more feverish, vowing to finally settle the score. Tonbo looked up at the sky. The Nine Tails Night of Chaos was drawing near. The Nine Tails. It was another quiet night. 9 months had passed since Minato became Hokage, and Konoha had entered its 48th year since its founding. Rumble. A wave of energy swept through the center of Konoha, radiating in all directions. Beep. 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 The highest state of emergency siren wailed throughout Konoha. The moment the sound hit, every ninja in the village snapped awake from the darkness, their hearts pounding. This alarm only sounded when the very survival of the village was at stake. Swoosh. Swoosh. Ninjas leapt onto rooftops to observe the situation and await orders. Those near the source of the noise could already see the gargantuan figure. 9 tails swayed violently above the Konoha skyline. What kind of monster is that? With every sweep of a tail, sections of Konoha's architecture were leveled, and countless residents were killed instantly. Son, what is that? Tosei stood on the roof with Tonbo, staring at the sky-high beast. Tonbo sighed inwardly. Is it finally here? That should be the 9 tails. Dad, go evacuate the residents. Follow the emergency protocols for the village. You remember them, right? Tonbo directed. Tosei nodded. He had been a Chunin once. He knew the procedure. When the highest alert was triggered, all Chunin were to guide civilians to the shelters. Make sure Ayame and Uncle Chuki are safe. Tonbo added before moving rapidly toward the 9 tails. He wasn't the only one. Every ninja of Chunin rank and above was mobilizing. Genin were placed under the command of Chunin to east in the evacuation. Emergency order. Everyone, protect non-combatants. Quote. Shikaku Nara's voice echoed in the ears of every ninja through the communication network. Orders were being barked out one after another. At the sight of the Nine Tails, a large group of ninjas was already trying to restrain it. The first to arrive were the Inoshika Cho trio, with commands relayed via Inoichi's telepathy jutsu. Shuriken, kunai, and paper bombs rained down, but the combined attack of the ninjas was like tickling the beast. Not only was it useless, it only served to further enrage the Nine Tails. Boom. I bear the title of Hokage. I swear to protect the village with my life. Minato looked at the towering beast. The Nine Tails' gaze locked onto him. It opened its mouth, and a MIV-black sphere began to form. I won't let you hurt the village. That MIV energy. I have to choose the impact point carefully. Facing the MIV-tailed beast bomb, Minato wove hand seals, using a space-time barrier to warp the explosion away. Thud. A colossal explosion rose outside the village. The sheer magnitude of the energy felt through the air made Tonbo's heart race. Terrifying. If that hit you, there wouldn't be enough left of you to bury. It looks like the fourth is dealing with Obito right now. Good. I need to demonstrate my own will of fire. After over a year of training, Tonbo was no longer the green genin who had just stepped onto the battlefield. He wanted to help minimize the casualties. As he neared the Nine Tails, he saw waves of ninjas trying to distract it. The beast was far more horrifying than it appeared in the anime. The sheer aura it emitted was oppressive. Guy. Kakashi. What's the status? He asked, landing beside them. This thing seems to be controlled by the Sharingan, Kakashi said, staring at the beast's eyes. Yosh. Then it's time for me to burn my youthful energy. Guy struck a pose, looking ready to challenge the beast head-on. The third and the two elders have arrived. Tonbo's sensory range expanded. The MIV-M of the Nine Tails chakra could no longer disrupt his focus. He sensed 4 figures approaching. The Nine Tails was too durable for the ninjas to defeat, but they could suppress it temporarily. One figure grew to a MIV size, engaging the beast directly. Oh, it's Choza-sensei. So cool. So youthful. Guy watched his teacher, his eyes burning with fire. Seeing his mentor fight such a giant beast made his blood boil. Bang. 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 Choza was no match for the Nine Tails, but his giant form limited the beast's area of effect attacks, preventing further civilian casualties. Other ninjas swarmed in. Shadow possession, mind transfer, mountains of paper bombs. Alright. Let's go too, Kakashi said. Burn. My hot-blooded energy. Guy shouted. Swoosh. Stop. You are to report to the Embly Hall. A figure with a sword on his back blocked their path. Hayama. Why? Orders from the third Hokage. Hayama Shirakumo replied flatly. We can help, Tonbo argued. He truly felt he could contribute, perhaps by using his new secret technique to distract it slightly like Choza and the others. It's an order, Hayama said, leaving no room for debate. TCH. Let's go. An order is an order, and the third is already on site anyway. Tonbo realized that with the third and the elders there, his power was indeed inferior. Besides, he didn't know if his Genjutsu secret technique would even work on the Nine Tails. Best not to cause trouble. Guy and Kakashi followed with dissatisfaction as they headed toward the Embly point. Damn it. Hayama makes us leave, then runs off to help himself. Guy grumbled along the way. Tonbo replied, stop complaining. Let's get to the Embly Hall. There might be other orders. Besides, Hayama is a jonin. I'm just surprised they ordered Kakashi to leave too. Kakashi didn't say much. He just looked back once at the Nine Tails. They soon reached the Embly point, but to their disappointment, their orders were to protect the residents rather than join the battle. Tonbo sighed with a mix of regret and relief. Protecting civilians was important work, even if he had wanted to test his new technique on the Nine Tails. The civilians were in total chaos, their faces masks of terror. Tonbo separated from Guy and the others to evacuate people in different sectors, but he kept his sensory focus on the battlefield. The third and his teammates had made their move. It was the first time Tonbo had seen the two elders fight. He recognized the third's moves from the anime: 5-element elemental attacks, composite strikes, and the shuriken shadow clone jutsu. But Mitokado Homura was an eye-opener. Countless giant weapons rained from the sky, temporarily pinning the Nine Tails, while scrolls unfurled to launch a barrage of attacks covered in paper bombs. It made the beast howl in pain. Even Danzo Shimura made a move, his wind style slicing into the Nine Tails, making it even more berserk. Utatane Kaharu focused on support and medical duties. Oh, so Homura is a weapon master type, like Tenten. Tonbo also noticed that the Sharingan pattern had vanished from the Nine Tails' eyes. The fourth had clearly done his part. Even so, the combined efforts of the ninjas were only enough to stall it. Finally, the third used his summoning jutsu, creating the iconic scene of the adamantine staff slamming into the Nine Tails and pushing it out of the village. Broken walls and ruined foundations. Incredible. Tonbo Tobitake couldn't help but admire them. The combat power of those who emerged from the Warring States period was on a different level. Whether it was the third, hailed as the strongest Hokage, or his fellow students, they were all top-tier masters. Although he hadn't seen them fight much in the original series, their sheer aura was truly no weaker than Hiruzen Sarutobi's. Boom. As the Nine Tails was blasted out of Konoha, a figure rushed out. Just as the Nine Tails attempted to charge back in, the figure rapidly expanded to a gargantuan size, using Miv hands to pin the beast down. Is that Torafu Akamichi? Tonbo wondered. His attention had been on the other, old-timers, before, causing him to overlook this character who only appeared a few times in the anime. However, he was clearly aging. His raw strength wasn't as great as Chose's anymore, but his combat experience was far richer. At this moment, he could actually suppress the Nine Tails temporarily, using all his might to pin it beneath him. Other ninjas quickly moved in to provide support. Tonbo shook his head and turned his focus back to evacuating the civilians. That battlefield was no longer a place where he could interfere. He had initially thought his newly developed secret technique might be of use, but now it seemed his support wasn't even as significant as that of the old guard. Besides, Konoha had no shortage of capable people. However, he noticed that Orochimaru was nowhere to be seen. The third pushing the Nine Tails out meant the end was drawing near. Swoosh. Swoosh. Tonbo moved beneath the buildings destroyed by the Nine Tails, pulling out residents from time to time. He saw the shattered homes and the weeping survivors cheering their fallen family members. This was a scene that would never fade from memory. There were so many of them. The Nine Tails was so miv that its every movement brought cataclysmic destruction to Konoha. Tonbo performed his duties faithfully, rescuing those who still had breath. For the injured, he used the battlefield first aid he had studied in his spare time to stabilize them. For those with severed limbs, he stopped the bleeding and used Genjutsu to suppress the pain signals being sent to their brains. This was all he could do. In terms of medical ninjutsu, he was still an amateur. Wailing and cries of agony echoed throughout his path as families mourned their dead. Thank you, Ninja-sama. Thank you. Quote, Mama, Papa. There were those who thanked him and those who simply collapsed in tears after being rescued. Tonbo felt a pang in his heart. If his father or Ayame had died, he would be the same way. This only hardened his resolve to become stronger. He might not be able to save the whole world, but at the very least, he had to save himself and his family. Broken walls and ruined foundations. This was the site at the heart of Konoha. Ninjas like Tonbo were everywhere, returning to the ravaged battlefield to quickly rescue any remaining lives. Meanwhile, far outside the village, the battle continued. Whether it was because Minato and Obito were too far away or not, Tonbo didn't sense their battlefield all night. He only knew that after the Nine Tails had rampaged for a while, the distant commotion slowly quieted down. He figured Minato had returned. During his search, he also encountered S future teacher, Iruka Yumino. Iruka was crying amidst the rubble. Based on his age, he looked to be about 2 or 3 years younger than Tonbo. Tonbo didn't try to strike up a conversation then. Losing both parents was not something easily consoled. Tonbo, do you sense anyone else left to save? Guy's 3-man squad approached him. Genma and Ebisu had arrived later. Since Tonbo was a sensory ninja, he had been acting as a captain to make the rescue operations more efficient. No more. Everyone who could be saved has been. The others. Tonbo shook his head. They were dead. Many had died. No wonder so many people in the future would hate. The public's rage was difficult to soothe when the damage was so widespread. Guy's team sighed in relief. A whole night of rescue missions had left them panting with exhaustion. Good thing Tonbo was here. The rescues were timely, preventing even more casualties, Genma said, giving him a thumbs up. Guy and Ebisu sat on the ground back to rest. Tonbo replied, "Don't flatter me. It was everyone's hard work. I'm not the only sensory ninja out here." The night hadn't truly ended yet. In the distance, the morning light began to rise, illuminating the current Konoha with a profound sense of desolation. At Ayame's house. "Tonbo, are you alright?" Ayame let out a sigh of relief when she saw him return unscathed. Tonbo gave her a quick hug. "I'm quite capable, so of course I'm fine. But the village's losses are serious. I'll probably be very busy soon." After a night of rescue work and a morning of writing reports, his mission was finally over for now. Konoha's specific long-term plans hadn't been released yet, but he expected to be slammed with work later. He had to rest while he could. "As long as you're safe. I'm proud of you for contributing to the village." Ayame stood on her tiptoes and gave him a light peck on the cheek. Tap, tap, tap. "Hey, hey, don't act like this old man doesn't exist, you brat." Chuki tapped his fingers incessantly on the table as if his eyes weren't even open, looking quite annoyed. "Seriously, have some sense of distance." Beside him, Tosei watched this scene with a smile. He thought to himself, "Good lad, it looks like I don't need to worry about my son's marriage." Chuki added, "But I'm proud of you too, Tonbo. Keep it up." Quote, "Yes." With the recognition of his beloved and his future father-in-law, Tonbo was full of energy. His heart was online again. After talking with his family, Tonbo went to the analysis team the following day. He could see that all his colleagues were in a foul mood, with a dark cloud hanging over everyone's heads. When they saw him, they merely nodded in greeting. Shimon arrived late. He saw Tonbo and sighed. "How is it? Do you have any news? What exactly happened yesterday?" He knew Tonbo had high sensory abilities and might know some inside intel. He only knew the Nine Tails had invaded and caused MIV losses. He didn't know the rest. Well, all the top experts moved out. Judging by the silence now, Lord Hokage should have succeeded. Tonbo's answer made Shimon breathe a sigh of relief. As long as it was resolved. An official notice should be down soon, Tonbo said, not elaborating further. Information about top-level combatants dying was not something to be spread lightly. It could invite greed from other villages, even if they were also weakened by the recent war. Sure enough, shortly after they started work, Inoichi Yamanaka's orders arrived. All members of the analysis team were to participate in village patrol missions. Clearly, Konoha had lost many vital combatants in the fight against the Nine Tails. Even the desk-bound analysis team members had to go on patrol. Walking through Konoha covertly with Shimon, Tonbo's keen senses noticed that the Uchiha were nowhere to be seen on the streets. It seems the third or other high-ranking officials are already suspecting the Uchiha. The Sharingan, it really is a troublesome bloodline. Chapter 1. Battlefield Analysis Team. Clang, clang, clang. The sounds of shuriken and kunai flying across the battlefield echoed in the distance. Behind the front lines, members of the analysis team were working urgently on their missions. Captain, this is the genin with sensory talent, Tobitake Tonbo. He chose to join the analysis team immediately after graduation, Dokuraku Mawashi said, pointing to Tonbo standing behind him. Yamanaka Inoichi looked toward him, raising an eyebrow at the boy who was clearly still very young. Tonbo wore a Konoha forehead protector. However, his eyes, ears, and the back of his neck, essentially his entire head above the headband, were wrapped tightly in grayish-white bandages. Observing the world without using his eyes. It seems his sensory talent is indeed impressive, Inoichi thought. Is that Inoichi-senpai? Hello. I am Tobitake Tonbo. Seeing Inoichi look his way, Tonbo immediately straightened his posture, his voice laced with excitement. There's no time for small talk, Inoichi commanded. Mawashi, you take him under your wing. Aim to have him learn the psycho mind transmission, reading mind technique in the shortest time possible. Can you do it? Quote. On it, Captain, Mawashi replied, his eyes flashing with intensity. Ah. Tonbo's face fell. He had hoped for direct guidance from a Jonin. His senses lingered on Dokuraku Mawashi. This demon instructor of the analysis team was also young right now. Tonbo wondered when Kishimoto had even come up with the setting for this demon instructor. Hopefully, it wasn't a personality trait he possessed yet. Tonbo hadn't expected this. Watching the anime wasn't enough, so he had stayed up all night reading a Naruto fanfic, only to die of exhaustion and Ransma great. Now, he was in the midst of the Third Shinobi World War. He had been forced to graduate at only the 5th grade level. Terrified of dying, he had quickly identified the best place to stay safe, following the path of the original Tobitake Tonbo. A member of the analysis team. They had only one mission. Read the intelligence inside the enemy's brain, organize it, and hand it over to superiors. In times of peace, they were like the two gatekeepers of Konoha. They stayed put where they were needed. It couldn't be better. Mawashi led him to a side area of the encampment. Since it was wartime, the environment was naturally harsh. Here. This is the specific training method for the psycho mind transmission. With your sensory talent, it shouldn't be difficult. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me after I finish my mission. Mawashi tossed him a scroll and left. Tonbo knew the battlefield was an emergency. Every second counted. Even his CL mates, Might Guy, Ebisu, and Shiranui Genma, had to join the battle immediately. As a logistics specialist, he didn't have the luxury of one-on-one or one-on-3 specialized training. He opened the scroll. Peeling back the bandages on his face, he revealed his eyes. He thought learning the execution of the mind-reading technique would be simple. He had underestimated it. The scroll was filled with dense lines of text and figures. It was incredibly long. However, as he delved deeper into the reading, he realized that beyond the execution method, the scroll listed techniques on how to maximize intelligence retrieval once inside someone's mind. It also detailed methods to prevent the other person's thoughts from invading one's own mind during the process. Essentially, this jutsu was like an academic subject. The hand signs were the least important part. As long as one had sensory talent and decent spiritual energy, the execution was simple. As he read, the characters seemed to come alive. Tonbo found it exceptionally easy to understand. It wasn't nearly as difficult as he had imagined. Rat. Horse. Tiger. Once he finished reading, he quickly formed the hand signs. The formula for the psycho-mind transmission was executed by him with total ease. He scanned the camp, but finding nothing suitable to practice his mind reading on, he released the jutsu. What should I do next? To prevent enemy attacks, the analysis team was located in a hidden spot. He couldn't practice any flashy, high-impact ninjutsu here. I'll just practice my sensing then. He was, after all, a sensory-type ninja, a rarity compared to those with basic wind-style chakra. He wrapped the bandages back over his eyes. In his perception, everything around him turned into lines. This was how he could keep his eyes covered without affecting his movement. He formed the tiger seal and refined his chakra. Suddenly, his perception shifted. Within a 1-kilometer radius, the chakra signatures of distant frogs, birds, and shinobi appeared in his mind. While not as visually direct as the Byakugan, it was top-tier talent for a commoner. No wonder sensory ninjas were so rare. He then experimented with other basic ninjutsu, transformation, clone jutsu, and more. He realized a pattern. Since transmigrating, his talent seemed to have been boosted. No matter the knowledge, he could master it easily and even innovate upon it. For example, with the transformation jutsu, the original Tonbo could only transform into things he had observed for a long time. Now, with just a glance at a nearby animal, its form and gait would manifest in his mind, allowing for an instant, perfect transformation. The clone jutsu was the same. Before, it took him a full second. Now, his hand seals were a third faster. In a real fight, that was the difference between life and death. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you to learn the mind-reading technique? While Tonbo was practicing chakra control by climbing a tree, Dokuraku Mawashi reappeared. Seeing that Tonbo wasn't following his instructions, Mawashi felt a surge of irritation. It was wartime. A ninja who didn't follow orders died easily. I've learned it. I just didn't have a subject to test it on, Tonbo said as he dropped down in front of him. Mawashi froze, his face full of disbelief. According to the records, while Tonbo was strong in sensory talent, his performance in ninjutsu and theory at the academy was only above average. Follow me. Since the boy claimed success, Mawashi didn't argue. Besides, with Tonbo's face covered in bandages, it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Curious, Tonbo followed. They soon arrived at an underground secret room. A series of closed doors lined the corridor. Mawashi led him into one of the rooms. The ninja inside has already had his intelligence extracted. His mind is in a state of chaos. Give it a try. Remember. Don't push yourself. Quote. Tonbo stepped inside. The room was dim, lit only by a single flickering candle. Inside sat a dazed Sunagaker ninja. It seemed that forced mind reading had some nasty side effects. Mawashi didn't leave. He stayed by the side to watch, ensuring Tonbo didn't do anything reckless. Tonbo skillfully formed the hand signs and placed both hands on the neural centers just above the ninja's temples. He really did learn it. Mawashi thought, watching the boy's movements. He knew Tonbo wasn't lying. Back then, it had taken Mawashi 3 days to master this. Furthermore, Tonbo knew exactly where the nerves were most accessible from the outside. Starting from there saved a lot of effort during the mental intrusion. As Tonbo's spirit invaded the man's brain, he felt as if he were traveling through a time tunnel. Within the tunnel, fragments of memory flashed by. From entering the academy as a child to graduating and being sent on missions, the man was just a minor genin. However, his experience was quite rich, having survived the battlefields of the Third War for half a year before being captured by Konoha. Most of the memories were nonlinear and fragmented, likely due to the previous interrogations. However, Tonbo still absorbed a wealth of experience, combat tactics, scouting techniques, and more. He was also surprised, as if all of the other party's experiences allowed him to infer many things fro. M1. It seems that in the analysis team, my combat experience won't fall behind anyone else's in the future. Combat. Tobatake Tonbo's talent far exceeded Dokuraku Mawashi's expectations. He realized the boy's potential was immense. The next day, Tonbo was already ignored mind-reading missions. Through these sessions, he began to understand the true cruelty of war. This was the height of the Third Shinobi World War. Orochimaru was in command, with various Jonin leading squads to repel attacks from other nations. Unfortunately, Orochimaru was the only one of the Sannin present. Jiraiya and Tsunade were nowhere to be found on this front. Tsukumo Hatake, the White Fang, had also committed suicide a few years prior. This was arguably Konoha's weakest period in recent history. Meanwhile, Minato Namikaze was making a name for himself, earning the title of the Yellow Flash on the battlefield. From the memories Tonbo read, the rumors were true. Enemies were terrified of him. Shinobi who encountered him were officially authorized to abandon their missions and flee on sight. War is terrifying. I'd better stick to being a diligent worker in the analysis team, Tonbo thought. Navigating through various memories only strengthened his resolve. Saving the world was a job for the protagonists of each era. As he read more minds, his psycho-mind transmission grew increasingly proficient, so much so that it startled his captain, Dokuraku Mawashi. In his spare time, Tonbo practiced taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, and kunai throwing with his colleagues. On the battlefield, these were the most practical tools for a genin. During this time, he also met another teammate, Shimon, who was a newcomer just like him. Sigh. I hate war, Shimon lamented. Tonbo replied, I hate it too. But since we've become Konoha shinobi, we have to do our part for the village. Today's mission wasn't heavy. They were ignored to patrol the perimeter of the base in two-man cells. Of course, this was mostly to train the genin, as the analysis team's headquarters was actually guarded by the Anbu. While on duty, Tonbo made sure to express his will of fire to his colleagues from time to time. It was a tool that never failed to be useful. Swoosh, swoosh. The two patrolled the dim forest, scanning their surroundings and occasionally using sensory ninjutsu to detect any potential enemies. This was their daily routine. Tonbo, however, did a bit more. He never forgot to learn while patrolling. Having extracted so many memories, he had acquired unique taijutsu styles and specialized shuriken and kunai techniques from other hidden villages. He benefited greatly from this. But the biggest gains were the scouting experience, code analysis, and tracking methods. It was a true eye-opener. For a ninja, especially a commoner without a kekkei genkei, that theoretical knowledge was often more reliable on the battlefield than ninjutsu itself. Wait, something's happening. Suddenly, Tonbo stopped and activated his sensory ninjutsu. A map of chakra signatures within a 2-kilometer radius appeared in his mind. 1 kilometer to the east, a small unit has suddenly appeared. Based on their chakra levels, it's an elite squad. In his sensory vision, over a dozen people had suddenly breached their warning perimeter. The smallest chakra signature among them was roughly equal to their captain, Dokuraku Mawashi. Let's go report to the captain. Even though the Anbu hadn't detected them yet, since they had to report it. Shimon used his own sensory ninjutsu to confirm